Chapter 1165. Kill. Capital, Danwu College. In the courtyard. Boom. The Dark Emperor suddenly opened his eyes and his aura soared into the sky. Late-stage third-grade human sovereign. After 10 minutes of refining, the Dark Emperor had finally refined the 9th-grade mortal sovereign, Fang Chang. His cultivation also rose from mid-stage third-grade human sovereign to late-stage third-grade human sovereign. Who? Letting out a breath, the worry in the Dark Emperor's heart lessened slightly. To be honest, even the Dark Emperor found it unbelievable that he could refine Fang Chang in 10 minutes. After all, Fang Chang was a 9th-grade human sovereign and it was extremely difficult to refine him. Right now, even if I encounter a late-phase 8th-grade sovereign, I will be able to confront and even kill him. Similar to Ning Yu, the Dark Emperor was one of the 5 absolute geniuses. The 5 absolute geniuses weren't to be trifled with. It wasn't difficult for them to challenge those of a higher level. Ning Yu, I have something to discuss with you. Feeling the energy ripple in his sea of consciousness, the Dark Emperor rolled his eyes and stood in front of Ning Yu. I wonder if you have any extra Shenyang pills on you? 1. I only need 1 Shenyang pill. After refining Fang Chang, not only did the Dark Emperor raise his cultivation to late-stage third-grade human sovereign, he was only half a step away from peak third-grade human sovereign. In other words, if the Dark Emperor was given some extra energy, there was a high chance that he could reach peak third-grade human sovereign. Do you think I can mass-produce Shenyang pills? Opening his eyes, Ning Yu rolled his eyes at the Dark Emperor. I've used up all the Shenyang pills on me. If you need more, ask me 3 days later. It'll be too late by then. The Dark Emperor was a little disappointed. This was the best chance for him to reach peak third-grade human sovereign. If he missed this opportunity, he wouldn't get another one. What cucumber or cow? Let me ask you, did you manage to get any useful information from Fang Chang? Ning Yu asked. After organizing his thoughts, the Dark Emperor asked, what news do you wish to know? Nonsense, what else could it be? Are there any more powerful pill puppets in the underground pill cave? Ning Yu rolled his eyes. This, you don't have to worry about it. According to the information that I obtained from Fang Chang, the Eastern Expedition Army in Danzhong had already retreated from the Great Xia Kingdom. After recalling for a while, the Dark Emperor said, however, there's one thing I can be sure of. You're already in the top 10 of the must-kill list in Dan Ming's Eastern Expedition Army. There's a must-kill list in the pill furnace? Ning Yu asked, puzzled. Of course. All the humans who are able to make it onto the must-kill list are all extremely sick with high cultivation states. Only you have the lowest cultivation state. The Dark Emperor nodded his head. Seal. Right at this moment, the palace master waved her hands repeatedly while she shouted in a low voice. As palatial mistress Bai Hua shouted, the situation in the courtyard changed. Instantly, all the primal energy gathered in front of her. The Yuan Qi gathered into a small vortex. The vortex grew bigger and bigger. In the end, it drilled into the ground and disappeared in front of Ning Yu and the Dark Emperor. After the vortex disappeared, palatial mistress Bai Hua's vision blurred and she fell to the ground. Swish. Ning Yu reacted quickly and caught palatial mistress Bai Hua when she fell to the ground. I've already sealed the exit of the pill cave. I'm too tired. This soul force needs to sleep. Before she fainted, palatial mistress Bai Hua said, also, remember your promise. If I don't wake up in a month, please make a trip to 100 Flowers Palace. Before she finished speaking, palatial mistress Bai Hua's eyes rolled and she fainted. Ning Yu was a little speechless as he watched palatial mistress Bai Hua faint. The region where 100 Flowers Palace was located was extremely dangerous. With his current cultivation state, rushing to 100 Flowers Palace was undoubtedly courting death. I hope you can wake up in a month, Ning Yu murmured. You better stay away from me. Suddenly, palatial mistress Bai Hua, who was in Ning Yu's arms, opened her eyes and said coldly, otherwise, I'll cripple you. Hiss. Hearing palatial mistress Bai Hua's words, Ning Yu couldn't help but shiver and quickly retreated. No, you're not palatial mistress Bai Hua. You're Xie Lan. Just after taking a few steps back, Ning Yu came to his senses. All this while, Xie Lan's body had been controlled by palatial mistress Bai Hua. Now that palatial mistress Bai Hua was heavily injured and urgently needed to recuperate, the control of her body was naturally returned to Xielan. Of course I'm Xielan. Xielan said in a low voice, I need royal grade origin crystals, a large amount of royal grade origin crystals. Although her cultivation had reached the middle phase 8th grade sovereign realm, Xielan knew that her cultivation wasn't stable. Only by refining more royal grade origin crystals would she be able to completely stabilize her cultivation state. She didn't expect that handing over control of her body to palatial mistress Bai Hua would allow her to quickly reach intermediate 8th grade sovereign. In the past, Xielan wouldn't have dared to imagine that she could reach intermediate 8th grade sovereign in such a short period of time. I don't have any more royal grade origin crystals. Shrugging, Ningyu said. Although this was a cruel reality, Ningyu had no choice but to face it. Right now, not to mention royal grade origin crystals, Ningyu didn't even have a single king grade origin crystal on him. Are you sure you're not joking with me? Xielan exclaimed. Xielan knew very well that Ningyu had a lot of Shengyang pills and royal grade origin crystals. Now that he said he didn't have any royal grade origin crystals, who would believe him? It's up to you whether you believe me or not. Shrugging, Ningyu said, your cultivation state isn't very stable yet. I advise you to find a place to recuperate and stabilize your cultivation state in a few hours. I don't need you to teach me. Glaring at Ningyu, Xielan stomped on the ground and flew out of the courtyard. Seeing Xielan leaving, Ningyu did not stop him. After all, the pill cave had been sealed and the experts of the Corpse Yin sect and the Blood God Palace had been eliminated. In such a huge capital, Xielan could do whatever she wanted as long as he, Venerable Sword Evil, and the others didn't do anything. If an intermediate 8th grade sovereign couldn't dominate the capital, then it would be a little ridiculous. Boom. However, reality had proven that some words were better left unsaid. Just as this thought rose in Ningyu's mind, he saw a figure rushing over from outside the courtyard and landing heavily on the ground. Xielan. This figure was none other than Xielan, the 8th grade middle human supreme realm Xielan. The sudden change had caused Ningyu's face to turn dark. The experts of the Blood God Palace, Corpse Sect and Pill Puppet in the Great Xia Kingdom had all been dealt with. Who else could harm Xielan? Fart. Xielan spewed out a mouthful of blood and his aura weakened. From an intermediate 8th grade sovereign to an initial 8th grade sovereign, it was still dropping. Rustle, 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 rustle. Chapter 1166. Merciless Who. Looking at the four figures that suddenly appeared, Ningyu's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. Although the four cultivators in front of him didn't have high cultivation, only a 5th grade human supreme, Ningyu knew that their battle prowess wasn't weak. Hihi. It doesn't matter who we are. What's important is that you know Lu Wei. The leading young man smiled and said. Swoosh. Hearing that, Ningyu's face completely darkened. So the target of these four cultivators wasn't Xielan or him, but Lu Wei. If I'm not wrong, you should be from the Sacred Heaven Sect. Ningyu said in a low voice. Clap clap clap. The young man who spoke just now clapped his hands and said, that's right. We are indeed from the Sacred Heaven Sect. If you know what's good for you, hand over Lu Wei as soon as possible because we don't want to kill. Otherwise, speaking up to this point, the young man's eyes became extremely cold and he suddenly unleashed his aura. Rumble. An extremely terrifying aura emanated from the young man and pressed down on Ningyu. Peak 5th grade human supreme, a triple ultimate genius. Feeling the terrifying aura emanating from the young man, Ningyu's eyes narrowed. Swoosh. At this moment, the Dark Emperor's four hooves stomped on the ground and his body instantly shot out. Roar. Letting out a loud roar, the Dark Emperor's aura also emerged and collided with the young man's aura. TSK TSK. When the two terrifying auras collided, even the void let out a sizzling sound. Purple gold sky devouring hound. As a peerless genius of the Sacred Heaven Sect, Jushi had done some research on sky-devouring hounds. Because the Sacred Heaven Sect had a sky-devouring hound, now that he saw a purple-gold sky-devouring hound, Jushi made up his mind. Capture it alive. No matter what, He had to capture this purple gold sky-devouring hound and bring it back to the Sacred Heaven sect. Perhaps the sky-devouring hound of the Sacred Heaven sect would reward him with a lot of cultivation resources. The three of you go and deal with Ningyu. Remember, you must force Lu Wei's whereabouts. Zhu Ba cracked his neck and said, as for this purple gold sky-devouring hound, leave it to me. As soon as the word pay was uttered, Zhu Buyu's figure gradually became illusory. In an instant, he appeared in front of the Dark Emperor and started fighting with him. The Dark Emperor was a third-grade human supremacy stage genius, while Zhu Shi was a third-grade human supremacy stage genius. Logically speaking, there was not much of a difference in their strength. However, Zhu Shi was a peak 5th-grade human sovereign, while the Dark Emperor was only a late 3rd-grade human sovereign. There was a small grade difference between the two, causing the Dark Emperor to be at a disadvantage. Ningyu, tell me where Lu Wei is, or I'll show you why flowers are so red. The battle between Zhu Se and the Dark Emperor did not affect the other 3 5th-grade human supreme martial artists. Among the 3 5th-grade human sovereigns, one was a peak 5th-grade human sovereign while the other 2 were late 5th-grade human sovereigns. The martial artist who spoke was called Gao Lin, a peak 5th-grade human supreme. I have a question. Glancing at the Dark Emperor's battlefield, Ningyu said in a deep voice, why do you guys have to find Lu Wei? Why is the Divine Heaven sect looking for Lu Wei? In order to find Lu Wei, the Divine Heaven sect had sent experts to the Great Xia Kingdom time and time again. In total, there had been 3 to 4 times. Other than the first time, Ningyu had been by Lu Wei's side for the rest of the times. Otherwise, with Lu Wei's combat strength, she would have been captured long ago. I'm sorry, I can't tell you about this. Pouting, Gao Lin said, if you want to know, you can return to the Divine Heaven sect with us. Sword of Evil, how much combat strength do you have now? Return to the Divine Heaven sect with Gao Lin? What a joke. Ningyu had never thought about this. The reason why he asked Gao Lin was because he wanted to buy some time for the Sword Devil Venerable to recover. Actually, before Gao Lin and the others appeared, the Sword of Evil was about to recover to its peak. However, the appearance of Gao Lin and the others caused some trouble for the Sword of Evil's recovery, causing the 1-minute recovery time to be increased to 2 minutes. If I make a move now, I can easily kill those 2 late phase 5th-grade sovereigns. But for the remaining 2 pinnacle 5th-grade sovereigns, I can only contend with them, but not kill them. The Sword of Evil answered. Make a move now, we can't wait any longer. Ningyu knew the severity of the problem. Killing one was one. If an even more powerful expert appeared later, wouldn't they have to bear the consequences? So kill if you can, and don't hold back. Anyway, the Divine Heaven sect definitely didn't have good intentions in capturing Lu Wei. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sent so many people. Moreover, each time they came, their cultivation would be higher and stronger. If this continued, the next time, there would probably be a 9th-grade human supreme. No problem. The Sword of Evil responded. His eyes turned cold, and his body dashed out. Oh no, retreat. Gao Lin's perception was not weak. Before the Sword of Evil made a move, he didn't know how strong the Sword of Evil was. Now that the Sword of Evil had made a move, he realized the severity of the problem. The Sword of Evil's strength was not weaker than his. In some sense, the Sword of Evil was slightly stronger than him. After all, the Sword of Evil was a genuine peak 8th-grade human supreme. Swoosh. Swoosh. Gao Lin's words were very effective. The other 2 peak 5th-grade human supreme retreated immediately after hearing Gao Lin's words. In the Divine Heaven sect, Gao Lin was famous for his powerful perception. For Gao Lin to make a move, it was enough to show that the Sword of Evil was not weak. Poof. Poof. However, it was already too late for the Sacred Heaven sect's 5th-grade supreme martial artist to retreat. The Sword of Evil was quick to react. He came in front of them in an instant, clenched his fists, and suddenly punched out. The 2 fists brought with them a violent primordial chi wind, and hit the chests of the 2 peak 5th-grade human supreme. With a muffled sound, the 2 peak 5th-grade human supreme spat out a big mouthful of blood at the same time, and their aura dropped sharply. Swoosh. At this time, a fierce look appeared in Ningyu's eyes, and he immediately dashed out. Holding the red demon sword, Ningyu stabbed down fiercely. Stab. Stab. There was some primordial chi jumping on the red demon sword. Under the horrified gazes of the two peak 5th grade human supreme, the sword stabbed into their hearts. Buzz. A terrifying devouring force erupted from the red demon sword. In just a few seconds, the two late-stage 5th grade supreme martial artists from the Sacred Heaven sect were completely devoured and turned into two pieces of meat. Whoosh. The sudden change caused Ju-se and Jiao Lin to stop in their tracks. Their mouths were wide open, and they stared at the flesh under Ningyu's feet in disbelief. Their eyes were full of horror. Gulp. After a while, Ju-se and Jiao Lin swallowed at the same time. Before they came, they would never have imagined that their two late 5th grade Sovereign Realm companions would be killed in such a short period of time. Chapter 1167. A string of three crack. Clenching their fists, Ju-se and Jiao Lin looked at each other and saw the deep anger in each other's eyes. In the Divine Heaven sect, the four of them had a very good relationship. Now that two of their companions were killed, how could they tolerate it? However, seeing the sword of evil beside Ningyu, Ju-se and the others looked gloomy and didn't make a move immediately. Ningyu, I'm asking you one last time. Lu Wei, are you going to hand over or not? Taking a deep breath, Ju-se said in a deep voice. Noisy. Ningyu said indifferently. However, in the ears of Ju-se and the others, it sounded so gloomy. Sword of evil, don't leave anyone alive. Kill them without mercy. Understood. Sword of evil nodded and moved toward Ju-se and the others step by step. Looking at the sword of evil approaching him, Jiao Lin's eyes flickered and he said in a low voice, "What should we do?" "Except for Ningyu, kill them without mercy." With a low shout, Ju-se rose from the ground and was the first to rush toward the sword of evil. Relatively speaking, Ju-se's strength was much stronger than before. Jiao Lin might still be afraid of the sword of evil, but Ju-se was not. In Ju-se's opinion, the sword of evil couldn't do anything to him. At most, they could be evenly matched. He would hold off the sword of evil while Jiao Lin dealt with the Dark Emperor and Ningyu. There was nothing wrong with that. Swoosh. With Ju-se defending him against the sword of evil, the pressure in Jiao Lin's heart was relieved a little. With the pressure reduced and the worries gone, Jiao Lin rushed out instantly and waved his hands. Suddenly, a fist radiance flew out and arrived in front of Ningyu in a flash. Facing such a horrifying palm print, Ningyu didn't dare to be careless. He clenched his right hand into a fist and slashed down a heavenly sword radiance. Bang! The sword radiance and the fist radiance collided and both disappeared between heaven and earth. Not bad. Very good. But you won't be so lucky next. He was evenly matched with Ningyu in one move, but Jiao Lin was not angry. Instead, he punched out again. Bang! With the same movement, Ningyu waved the red demon sword and the sword radiance touched the palm print for the second time. Without a doubt, the sword radiance and the palm print disappeared for the second time. We can't continue like this. Jiao Lin was not a pushover. Two consecutive palm prints failed to force Ningyu back, so he came up with a plan. Since I can't defeat you, then I'll go find your friend. Jiao Lin was not sloppy at all. He blasted out another palm print to force Ningyu back, and then his whole body turned into a residual shadow, rushing toward Xielan. When they first arrived, Xielan had already been defeated by them. As long as they could capture Xielan, why would Ningyu not submit? Other than Ningyu, he could also go to Danwu College to capture some students. He believed that Ningyu would be very cautious. Oh no! Xielan, run! Seeing Jiao Lin turn around and rush toward Xielan, Ningyu shouted in a hurry. Run! Where are you going? In the process of running, Jiao Lin didn't forget to look back and taunt, I forgot to tell you. This girl has been poisoned by the Divine Heaven sect's unique poison. Even if I don't kill her, she won't live for more than a few days. Pa! Jiao Lin came to Xielan's side in an instant. He grabbed Xielan's shoulder and lifted her up. Ningyu, I will ask you one last time. Lu Wei, are you going to hand her over or not? Jiao Lin said coldly. Ningyu's face was extremely gloomy. Ningyu knew that if he dared to say no, Gao Lin would kill Xielan immediately. Damn it, how could I forget about Xielan? Cursing, Ningyu began to communicate with the law of space and the sapling. As time went by, the corners of Ningyu's mouth gradually lifted into a smile. Ha ha ha. In the end, Ningyu even laughed out loud. Have you lost your mind? Seeing Ningyu laugh, Gao Lin was slightly stunned. His companion was about to be killed, and he could still laugh. How big of a heart was he? Ningyu, since you don't care about her life or death, I will send her to the next world. Ignoring Ningyu's laughter, Gao Lin exerted some force in his right hand and threw Xielan into the air. Then, a cold gleam shot out from his eyes and went straight for Xielan. Crack. However, just as the cold gleam shot out from Gao Lin's eyes, the space around Xielan suddenly cracked. After the space cracked, Xielan was naturally swallowed by the void. What's going on? Such a change was obviously beyond Gao Lin's expectations. His goal was to kill Xielan and deter Ningyu. But now, not only did Xielan fail to kill Ningyu, but she also failed to deter Ningyu. Let me tell you what happened. Ningyu took a step forward and came before Gao Lin in the blink of an eye. He said calmly, although your cultivation level is 2 levels higher than mine, in terms of the attainment of space, you and I are too far apart. You mean, you were the one who saved that woman? Gao Lin's mouth was agape, and his face was full of disbelief. You're not that stupid. Ningyu shrugged his shoulders. Soon after, he gripped the red demon sword and slashed through the air, ruthlessly slashing at Gao Lin's neck. Although Gao Lin was a peak-level 5th grade human supreme genius, Ningyu had already convinced the law of space and the sapling to help Ningyu. With the help of the law of space and the sapling, Ningyu was not afraid of Gao Lin. In the process of advancing, Ningyu and the red demon sword disappeared at the same time. Buzz. The next moment, Ningyu appeared in front of Gao Lin with the red demon sword in his hand. Slash. Holding the red demon sword tightly, Ningyu wrapped all the primordial chi and soul power in his sea of consciousness around the red demon sword and slashed at Gao Lin's neck with a backhand. Ningyu's slash was extremely powerful. Not to mention Gao Lin, even Juicer might not be able to withstand it. No. Looking at the flying sword that was approaching him, Gao Lin's pupils shrank and his eyes were full of fear. Crack. How could Ningyu let go of Gao Lin? When dealing with an enemy, one could not show any mercy. Ningyu's all-out attack was very powerful. Under Gao Lin's terrified gaze, the red demon sword pierced into his neck. Then, Ningyu exerted a little force, and a horrible devouring power burst out from the red demon sword. The devouring power quickly divided into 2 and instantly swallowed Gao Lin, a peak-level 5th grade human supreme. What? When Juicer saw that Gao Lin was easily killed, his expression changed dramatically. Bang! Juicer's momentary daze allowed the sword of evil to seize the opportunity. When experts exchanged blows, even the slightest bit of distraction could cause one's body to shatter into pieces. Juicer was fine. He was only hit by the sword of evil's sneak attack, but it was not a big deal. Ningyu, you killed 3 of my companions. At this point, Juicer became calm, so calm that it was a little scary. Juicer said calmly, our target is Lu Wei, not you. However, because of your stupidity, you have become the target of the Sacred Heaven sect. Chapter 1168. Clones. Ha ha ha. Hearing Ningyu's words, Jushi threw his head back and laughed maniacally. Then, he changed the topic and said coldly, do you think you can fight me after killing 3 of my companions? To be honest, you're too naive. Am I naive? Ningyu frowned slightly. You only have 1, but we have 3. Swoosh. Swoosh. The evil sword Venerable and the Dark Emperor flew to Ningyu's side and stood on either side. You have helpers, so do I. Jushi's tone was emotionless as he spoke. With that, Jubei waved his sleeve and a crystal ball appeared in his hand. Crack. Raising his right hand, Jushi threw the crystal ball to the ground. With a crisp sound, the crystal ball exploded. Swoosh. As the crystal ball exploded, an illusory figure emerged from the void. Hiss. Ningyu and Venerable Sword Evil sucked in a breath of cold air when they saw the illusory figure that suddenly appeared. A 9th grade human supreme martial artist. The aura emitted from the illusory figure had reached the terrifying 9th grade human supreme martial artist. Humph. You always make me worry. After the 9th grade human supreme martial artist appeared, he scanned the surroundings and snorted. Have your identities been exposed? Apart from the people in this courtyard, no one knows that we're from the Divine Heaven sect, Jushi replied hurriedly. Bang! The illusory figure flicked his sleeve and a cold light flew out, hitting Jushi's chest. The tremendous force that came from his chest sent him flying backward and crashing heavily into the ground. Our identities cannot be exposed. To be safe, let's slaughter everyone from Danwoo College. Don't let anyone go. The illusory figure said coldly. Venerable Great Desolation, don't worry. I know what to do. Although he was hit by the illusory figure, Jushi didn't even dare to breathe heavily and replied respectfully. Venerable Great Desolation was a 9th grade human supreme martial artist. Jushi was worlds apart from Venerable Great Desolation. He definitely wouldn't dare to challenge Venerable Great Desolation. Buzz. Jushi tore through the void and dashed out of the courtyard. Wait. Seeing that Jushi wanted to leave, Ningyu took a step forward and scolded, You want to leave? Have you asked for our permission? If I want to leave, I'll leave. What can you do about it? Jushi curled his lips and said disdainfully, If the Great Desolation Reverend wants to kill you, it would be as easy as blowing off dust. Stop bragging. If the true body of the Great Desolation Reverend were here, I would run away immediately, but, as he spoke, Ningyu briefly paused, before he continued, This Great Desolation Venerable is only a clone. Although his aura is comparable to a 9th grade sovereign, his overall strength is only at the pinnacle of 8th grade sovereign. Rumble. Ningyu's words made Jushi's heart sink to the bottom. He had thought that his acting skills were good enough to deceive Ningyu. Who would have thought that Ningyu was even more astute than him, seeing through the true nature of the Venerable of Great Wilderness? This Venerable of Great Wilderness was indeed a clone, and his strength was only at the pinnacle of 8th grade sovereign. In fact, he was even slightly weaker than him. Ningyu, although this is the clone of the Great Desolation Reverend, his perception is at the pinnacle of 9th grade sovereign, and his battle experience is also at the pinnacle of 9th grade sovereign. Jushi said in a deep voice, If I join hands with the Great Desolation Reverend, killing you will be as easy as pie. Aren't you afraid that your tongue will be bitten by the wind? After a cold voice, Ningyu turned around and said, Sword of Evil, you deal with the clone of the Great Desolation Reverend. The Dark Emperor and I will deal with Jushi. No problem. Swordsman Evil Sword responded and stomped his feet on the ground. Then, he dashed forward. The Great Desolation Reverend was a 9th grade sovereign, while this clone only had the battle strength of a pinnacle of 8th grade sovereign. Although the Great Desolation Reverend had more battle experience, it would be extremely difficult for him to kill the Sword of Evil in a short period of time. Today, we will fight side by side again. After exchanging glances with the Dark Emperor, Ningyu held the red demon sword in his hand and instantly tore through the void to arrive before Jushi. Slash. Violent yuan qi was emitted from the red demon sword as it slashed at Jushi's neck. Ningyu was aware of Jushi's strength, so he did not hold back and used his full strength in the first move. Whoosh. Seeing Ningyu's attack, the Dark Emperor's figure flickered and a pair of purple-gold wings appeared on his back. The wings flapped rapidly and several gusts of wind swept out, attacking Jushi from the side with the help of Ningyu. Child's play. Obviously, Jushi did not take Ningyu and the Dark Emperor seriously. He curled his lips and waved his hands continuously. As Jushi waved his hands, the space in front of him suddenly cracked. Whoosh. As soon as the space cracked, Jushi entered it. Great. Jushi's sudden action made Ningyu overjoyed. To be honest, if Jushi were to fight them head-on, Ningyu did not have much confidence that he could kill him. Now that Jushi had entered the void and was trying to engage in guerrilla warfare, it had completely given Ningyu a chance. Law of Space. With a thought, Ningyu began to communicate with the Law of Space. Jushi was a peak 5th grade human supreme, a triple ultimate genius, but his senses had yet to reach the 9th grade human supreme realm. In this state, Ju Shi would not be able to hide from the law of space, regardless of whether he entered the void or not. Dark Emperor, 1 Zhong to the east, attack. After learning Ju Shi's exact location through the law of space, Ningyu pretended not to know before he transmitted his voice to the Dark Emperor. Whoosh! The Dark Emperor knew that even if he launched a sneak attack, he would not be able to kill Ju Shi. However, it would not be easy for Ju Shi to kill him either. Especially under such circumstances, Ju Shi would not be able to kill him, and he would have a chance to injure Ju Shi. He found me. Seeing the Dark Emperor flying towards him, Ju Shi's heart skipped a beat. He had a bad feeling. Ju Shi was very confident in his ability to hide his aura. When he was in the Sacred Heaven sect, even some 9th grade human Supreme Realm experts could not find his exact location. Therefore, Ju Shi did not believe that the Dark Emperor had this ability. Whoosh! However, to be safe, Ju Shi still turned his head and charged towards Ningyu. On the surface, Ju Shi wanted to attack Ningyu, but in reality, he just wanted to test the Dark Emperor and see if he could find his exact location. It's really a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse. After flying for a few steps, Ju Shi smirked and said sinisterly. The reason why Ju Shi was so sure that the Dark Emperor was a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse was because when he moved, the Dark Emperor did not move with him. In other words, the Dark Emperor did not know where he was, and what happened earlier was purely a coincidence. Sacred Heaven Fist. In an instant, Ju Shi appeared in front of Ningyu. He clenched his right hand into a fist and punched towards Ningyu's head. Sacred Heaven Fist was a profound martial technique of the Sacred Heaven sect. When used to the extreme, it was extremely powerful. In the past, when Ju Shi was an early-stage 5th grade human Supreme Realm expert, he used Sacred Heaven Fist to kill a late-stage 8th grade human Supreme Realm expert. Chapter 1169. Kai Kai. Kai Kai. In order to kill Ningyu in one move, Ju Se gathered all the yuanqi in his sea of consciousness into his fist. The pulsating yuanqi made a sizzling sound when it came into contact with the air. Ju Se's fist brought with it a violent yuanqi gale as it slammed toward Ningyu's head. Dark Emperor. Just as Ju Se's fist was about to land on Ningyu's head, Ningyu suddenly reacted and shouted. Whoosh! Following Ningyu's shout, the Dark Emperor in the distance suddenly turned his head and charged toward Ju Shi. Humph! It's too late to think of dealing with me now. Ju Se snorted and increased his speed again. His right fist was only 1 foot away from Ningyu. At such a close distance, Ju Se did not believe that Ningyu could dodge it. Bang! At the critical moment, Ningyu did not panic. He clenched his right fist and suddenly punched out. A crisp sound rang out. Ningyu and Ju Se retreated several feet at the same time. However, judging from the distance they retreated, Ju Se seemed to have the upper hand. How is this possible? Although Ju Se had the upper hand, he still could not believe this result. How could Ningyu block his attack with all his might? When did Ningyu become so powerful? All kinds of doubts rose in Ju Se's mind. He was dumbfounded and could not believe it at all. It's not good to be distracted right now. At this moment, Ningyu's voice rang in Ju Se's ears. Swoosh! After the voice rang out, Ningyu's figure became illusory. He leaped to Ju Se's side and suddenly punched out with a violent yuanqi gale. Bang! His fist landed on Ju Se's chest, causing him to retreat in a straight line. Pa! Before Ju Se could retreat a few steps, the Dark Emperor seized the opportunity and whipped his neck with his tail. Poochie! The intense pain coming from his chest and neck caused Ju Shi to spit out a mouthful of dark red blood. Damn it! The sudden change caused Ju Ba to clench his fists tightly. His face was filled with viciousness. Careless. He had been too careless. He only cared about fighting with Ningyu and neglected the Dark Emperor. The Dark Emperor's battle prowess was not much weaker than Ningyu's. No, I have to think of something. Ju Shi turned his head to look at the Sword of Evil and the doppelganger of the Great Desolation who were fighting fiercely in midair. His eyeballs rolled as he quickly thought of a countermeasure. The current situation was very crucial for Ju Shi. If he dealt with them properly, he would be able to kill Ningyu and the Dark Emperor. If he did not handle this properly, he would be buried here today. So, Juicer was very careful and didn't dare to be careless. He could only succeed and couldn't fail. Dark Emperor, capture him alive. First, Ningyu sent a voice transmission to the Dark Emperor. Then, he stomped his feet on the ground and charged forward. At this point, Ningyu finally understood what was going on. He didn't want to ask why the Divine Heaven sect wanted to capture Lu Wei anymore. What he was concerned about was how many more experts the Divine Heaven sect would send over. Juicer and the others were 5th-grade human supreme martial artists. The doppelganger of the Great Desolation had also reached the pinnacle of 8th-grade human supreme martial artist. What Ningyu wanted to know was if there were any other experts from the Divine Heaven sect in the Great Xia Kingdom. Understood. Hearing Ningyu's order, the Dark Emperor flapped the purple-gold wings on his back and flew out quickly. The Dark Emperor was naturally not a match for Juicer when he was at his peak. But now that Juicer was severely injured and his strength had dropped a lot, the Dark Emperor could still fight him head-on. Rumble. Ningyu and the Dark Emperor displayed their powerful battle prowess. They blocked off Juicer's path of retreat with one at the front and one at the back. Juicer's aura would drop after a period of time. 3 minutes later. Ningyu's acting skills were fast. He held the Red Devil sword and suddenly pierced it into Juicer's chest. Fart. As soon as the Red Devil sword pierced into Juicer's chest, Ningyu immediately withdrew it. Thump. After being pierced by the Red Devil sword, Juicer's aura dropped rapidly. In a short period of time, he had already dropped to 3rd-grade human supreme martial artist. Moreover, Juicer's body fell straight to the back. Juicer, I'll give you a chance to live. Tell me if there are any other experts other than you guys. I will kill you all. Ningyu didn't want to kill Juicer. His goal was to ask if there were any other experts. Who would have thought that Juicer was so proud? Before Ningyu finished his sentence, Juicer's eyes rolled and he died on the spot. Juicer's sudden death made Ningyu's expression very ugly. Ningyu could clearly feel that Juicer had committed suicide. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels were all ruptured. Even his sea of consciousness was shattered. Go and help the Sword of Evil. Ningyu wasn't an indecisive person. He knew the severity of the situation. The Sword of Evil was at an absolute disadvantage when fighting with the doppelganger of Venerable Great Desolation. If no one helped, the Sword of Evil would be killed very quickly. Ha ha ha, Venerable Great Desolation, we will accept your doppelganger. Seeing that Ningyu and the Dark Emperor had come to help, the Sword of Evil laughed. Can you stop me if I want to leave? With a cold snort, the Venerable Great Desolation forced the Sword of Evil to retreat. Then, he tore the void and flew far away. This doppelganger was refined by the Venerable Great Desolation after a lot of effort. It was basically a part of his body. Once the doppelganger was damaged, his strength would drop a lot. Where there's life, there's hope. Moreover, the Venerable Great Desolation had made up his mind. Once he settled the matter at hand, he would immediately head to the capital to capture Ningyu. If he stayed, it would be a pointless resistance. The loss outweighed the gain. Want to leave? It's not that easy. Ningyu raised his eyebrows and his body became illusory. Buzz. Buzz. Behind Ningyu, the Sword of Evil and the Dark Emperor's bodies also became illusory. Fart. Not long after, a figure flew out of the void and landed heavily on the ground. The figure spat out a mouthful of blood and his breath was extremely weak. Ningyu, I'll remember you. Just you wait. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, the Venerable Great Desolation's eyes emitted a ferocious look. Oh no, retreat. Seeing the Venerable Great Desolation's action, Ningyu's face changed and he retreated immediately. Boom. Just as Ningyu and the rest took a few steps back, the Venerable Great Desolation's body grew bigger and finally exploded. Fart. 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 Although it was only a doppelganger, the explosion of the Venerable Great Desolation was still extremely powerful. Ningyu, the Sword of Evil, the Dark Emperor, and even Xie Lan, who was far away, spat out a mouthful of blood. Fart. At the same time, in a cave outside the capital of the Great Xia Kingdom, 2 old men sat on stone stools. One of the old men in a black robe widened his eyes and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His face turned pale. Venerable Great Desolation, what's going on? Seeing the Venerable Great Desolation's appearance, the other old man in a grey robe asked doubtfully. It's just a small matter. I have to make a trip to the capital personally. I'll come and talk to you another day. Waving his hand, the Venerable Great Desolation tore open the void and entered. A small matter. Could it be for Ningyu? Chapter 1170. Chapter 1170. Treasure Vault Swoosh. Great Xia Kingdom, Danwu College, in the courtyard. After the Great Wilderness Supremacy's clone exploded, Ningyu and the rest heaved a sigh of relief. The worry on their faces was slightly alleviated. One wave had yet to subside, and another wave had arisen. Just as they resolved Dan Kai's worries, the Great Wilderness Supremacy and the rest attacked. Luckily, the Great Wilderness Supremacy was only a clone. Otherwise, with the mental state of Ningyu and the rest, they wouldn't have lasted more than 3 minutes. Swoosh. When everything calmed down, a figure dashed in from outside the courtyard and landed beside Ningyu and the rest. Mu Feng. Actually, Mu Feng had witnessed the entire battle between Ningyu and the rest. Mu Feng's cultivation was too low. He hadn't even reached the honorable realm and didn't dare to get involved. Dean Mu, prepare a quiet room for us immediately. Ningyu didn't beat around the bush and said directly, also, bring over all the crystals and elixirs that you can gather at your current stage. After the battle, Ningyu and the rest had expended a lot of energy and urgently needed to replenish their energy. Venerable Da Huang, who had just self-destructed, was only an avatar. Once the Great Wilderness Supremacy's real body rushed over, the consequences would be dire. After all, the Great Wilderness Supremacy was a Grade 9 human supreme, with the current state of Ningyu and the rest, not to mention a 9th grade human sovereign, even a pinnacle 8th grade human sovereign would most likely die. Recuperate. Recuperate as much as possible. There was only one thought in Ningyu's mind, and that was to recover to his peak state as soon as possible. Although Danwu College has crystals and elixirs, they might not have much effect on warriors of your level. After a moment of silence, Mu Feng said, the royal family's Ouyang Lun is outside. Why not? Mu Feng didn't finish his sentence, but his meaning was self-evident. Ouyang Lun was the ruler of the royal family, and the royal family's foundation was similar to that of Danwu College. According to Mu Feng's guess, the royal family might have a treasure like the Shengyang pill. Dean Mu, you stay in Danwu College to deal with the aftermath. We will go to the Imperial Palace with Ouyang Lun. With that, Ningyu grabbed Xielan and flew out of the courtyard. Just as Mu Feng had said, Ouyang Lun was outside. Ningyu had just left the courtyard when he saw Ouyang Lun. To the royal family. Ningyu did not speak any nonsense. He directly flitted past Ouyang Lun and disappeared in an instant. Whoosh. Seeing that Ningyu had disappeared, Ouyang Lun did not dare to delay and hurriedly followed behind him. Let's go too. After such a long period of recuperation, Talisman Martial Supremacy had long recovered to peak condition. The more he interacted with Ningyu, the more he felt that Ningyu was terrifying. Since Ningyu had left Danwu College, there was no point for her to stay. Talisman Martial Supremacy and Yun Mu looked at each other and could see the shock in each other's eyes. Stepping on the ground, Talisman Martial Supremacy and Yun Mu's figures flashed and followed closely beside Ouyang Lun. Since Talisman Martial Supremacy and the rest had left, Dong He naturally would not stay behind. He followed closely and disappeared. Sho. Ningyu did not care if Talisman Martial Supremacy followed or not. He was already familiar with the Imperial Palace. Very soon, he arrived at the Imperial Palace from Danwu College and arrived at Ouyang Lun's room. Swish swish swish, before long, Ouyang Lun, Talisman Martial Supremacy and Dong He appeared one after another. Ouyang Lun, bring all the supreme grade essence crystals and above and elixir pills of grade 8 and above. Ningyu first placed Xielan on the chair and said in a deep voice, also, are there any treasures in the Imperial Palace? I mean, treasures similar to the Shengyang pill. Treasures? Ouyang Lun frowned slightly and went into deep thought. After a while, Ouyang Lun said hesitantly, There are many treasures in the imperial palace. They're all in the treasury. However, I don't know which one is useful to you. Bring me there. Ningyu stood up and said. Hold on. Seeing that Ouyang Lun was about to leave, Ningyu said, find a reliable person to bring all the essence crystals and elixir pills over. I'll go to the treasury with you. Hold on. Ouyang Lun took out a crystal ball from his bosom, whispered a few words, and immediately crushed it. Crack. The crystal ball shattered and Ouyang Lun said, the location of the treasury is confidential. I'll bring you there. As he spoke, Ouyang Lun moved his feet and left the room before Ningyu did. If there's anything, contact me as soon as possible. Ningyu nodded at the Sword of Evil and walked out of the room without looking back. In the room, the Sword of Evil and the rest looked at each other and could see the helplessness in each other's eyes. To be honest, it was extremely difficult to rely on supreme-grade essence crystals or even grade 8 elixir pills to recover at the level of the Sword of Evil and Talisman Martial Supremacy. Unless they had royal-grade essence crystals or grade 9 elixir pills, it would be harder for them to recover to their peak. Of course, if they had a large number of Shenyang pills, they would probably only need 3 minutes at most to recover to their peak. Did the Imperial Palace have Shenyang pills? The answer was obviously no. Ouyang Lun led Ningyu through many turns and walked for a full 10 minutes before he stopped in front of a slightly dark stone door. Ouyang Lun forced a drop of blood essence into the groove on the stone door. He pressed his hands against the door and exerted a little force. Creak. The thick and heavy stone door was pushed open slowly. Be careful. After giving Ningyu a warning glance, Ouyang Lun took the lead and walked in. Ningyu did not hesitate and followed Ouyang Lun closely. The moment his feet crossed the threshold, Ningyu frowned and stopped on the spot. What's wrong? Ouyang Lun had to stop as well when he saw Ningyu stop. How many levels does the treasury have? Ningyu asked. Of course it's the first level. Why do you ask? Ouyang Lun was puzzled. He had been in the Imperial Palace for so many years and he had been to the treasury hundreds of times. From what he knew, there was only one level. Could it be that there was a second or third floor in the treasury? That's right. The treasury does have a second, third, and even a fourth level. As though he had seen through Ouyang Lun's thoughts, Ningyu strode into the treasury. Using his perception, Ningyu started to probe carefully. Ouyang Lun did not even dare to breathe loudly when he saw Ningyu probing. He was extremely careful. Although Ouyang Lun looked calm on the surface, he was actually very disdainful. In Ouyang Lun's opinion, no matter how high Ningyu's cultivation was, he wouldn't be able to see anything. Ever since the establishment of the Great Xia Kingdom, this treasury had existed. After generations of exploration by the ancestors of the Imperial Palace, they came to a conclusion that there was only one level. I don't believe that you can, Ouyang Lun murmured in disdain. Crack. However, just as Ouyang Lun's disdain rose, his mouth opened wide and his voice stopped. This was because, with a cracking sound, the space in the center of the treasure vault had completely cracked open. Chapter 1171. Hellhound Gulp. The sudden change caused Ouyang Lun to be dumbfounded on the spot. He could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. Shock, fear, astonishment, all sorts of emotions appeared on Ouyang Lun's face, making him look extremely comical. Slap in the face. A blatant slap in the face. As the ruler of the royal family, Ouyang Lun felt ashamed that he did not know that there was a second level to the treasury. What are you standing there for? Come in. Seeing Ouyang Lun in a daze, Ningyu reminded him. Yes, yes, yes. Ouyang Lun immediately reacted. His body trembled and he hurriedly entered the vortex with Ningyu. Poochie. As soon as Ningyu and the rest entered the vortex, Ouyang Lun felt a sweetness in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. Pressure. A powerful pressure. Ouyang Lun was only in the manifestation realm. Facing this pressure that could kill a supremacy realm martial artist, there was nothing he could do. Fortunately, Ningyu used his Yuan Qi to help Ouyang Lun resist the pressure. Otherwise, Ouyang Lun would not have been able to enter the second level of the treasury. Rumble. When his feet left the vortex and stepped into the second level of the treasury, Ouyang Lun looked at the scene in front of him in a daze. The second level of the treasury was extremely special. Rather than calling it the second level, it was more like a small and narrow room. As the saying goes, a sparrow may be small, but it had all the organs. This room was not big, but the things inside made Ouyang Lun dizzy. There was a stone table in the middle of the room. On the table, there were 4 to 5 storage bags. Next to each storage bag was a piece of Emperor-grade origin crystal. It's actually Emperor-grade origin crystal. Ouyang Lun was not the only one who was shocked. Even Ning Yu himself was shocked. Ever since his rebirth, he had only seen 20 Emperor-grade origin crystals at the Talisman Supremacy's place. Now there were 5 storage bags here. If he guessed correctly, there was a large number of Emperor-grade origin crystals in each storage bag. Come here. Raising his right hand, a suction force flew out from Ning Yu's sleeve and sucked a storage bag over. Pa. Firmly grasping the storage bag, Ning Yu split off a wisp of perception and began to probe. Hiss. Ning Yu sucked in a breath of cold air as soon as he probed the surroundings. It wasn't that there weren't any Emperor-grade essence crystals in the storage pouch, but the amount of Emperor-grade essence crystals in the storage pouch had exceeded his expectation. 1,000. There were a total of 1,000 Emperor-grade essence crystals in the first storage bag. Emperor-grade essence crystals were much more precious than sovereign-grade essence crystals. So many Emperor-grade essence crystals were enough to let Ning Yu recover to his peak state. In fact, the extra Emperor-grade origin crystals could even allow Ning Yu to reach the pinnacle 3rd-grade mortal sovereign realm. To be precise, Ning Yu's cultivation was only at the early 3rd-grade human sovereign stage. As long as he could advance to the peak 3rd-grade human sovereign stage, he wouldn't have to fear ordinary 8th-grade human sovereigns in the future. He wouldn't have to fight like he did with Juser and the others. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Due to the urgency of the situation, Ning Yu didn't have the time to stay here any longer. He quickly collected the remaining 4 storage pouches and threw them into his storage ring. 5 storage pouches and 5,000 Emperor-grade essence crystals. Ouyang Lun's eyes lit up with envy when he saw this harvest. Ouyang Lun regretted guarding the treasury but didn't know how to use it. If he had discovered so many Emperor-grade essence crystals earlier, the imperial family's power would have increased by several fold. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Ouyang Lun could only stare straight at Ning Yu to see what Ning Yu was going to do next. Step aside. Waving his hand, Ning Yu gestured for Ouyang Lun to take a few steps back. Ouyang Lun didn't dare to disobey Ning Yu's order. He quickly retreated to the edge of the room and summoned his essence to form a barrier in front of him. Break. Ning Yu's eyes turned cold. He clenched his fists and suddenly punched out. Crack crack. The entire space crackled under Ning Yu's bombardment and shook rapidly. Poochie. The shaking of the void caused Ouyang Lun to spit out a mouthful of blood, and his face became slightly pale. Ouyang Lun's expression turned ugly. He initially thought he was safe. Who would have thought that there was no safety behind Ning Yu? Ouyang Lun even suspected that he would die if he followed Ning Yu to the 3rd floor. Roar. Just as Ouyang Lun was lost in his thoughts, a deafening roar echoed in the small room. No wonder you've been hiding in there. It's just essence gas. The corner of Ning Yu's lips curled up as he said calmly, "What I need are the Shenyang pills. Your time is up. Go back to where you came from. Human, you're smart to be able to tell that I'm just essence gas and that my time is up." Buzz buzz. The void trembled, and a dog-shaped creature appeared out of thin air. Hound of Hell. Looking at the strange creature before him, Ning Yu frowned. You're the Hound of Hell. From this, it seems like this space was created by an expert from the Hound of Hell race. To think that you know about the Hound of Hell. The 2-eared hound stared at Ning Yu with interest. I sense a familiar aura from you. You must have come into contact with the Heaven Devourer Hound. The Hound of Hell was the same as the Heaven Devourer Hound. They were both dogs. One of them could devour the heavens and the earth while the other was like a messenger from hell. Both were extremely terrifying. I have indeed come into contact with the Heaven Devourer Hound. Ning Yu said calmly, this essence gas of yours can't last long. Let's not waste everyone's time and enter the third floor. Although I would like to let you guys enter the third floor, the rules are set. As long as I live for another minute, you guys have to follow the rules. The two-eared hound said calmly. Sorry. Ningyu didn't want to waste his breath with the Hound of Hell and immediately charged out. There were 5,000 Emperor-grade origin crystals on the second floor, and no one stopped him. However, the third floor was guarded by the Hound of Hell. Judging from this, the third floor must have something even more terrifying than the Emperor-grade origin crystals. There's nothing wrong with offending me. The rules are set. If you want to enter the third floor, you have to defeat me. The two-eared hound looked at the approaching Ningyu and narrowed its eyes. Unfortunately, it's very difficult for you to defeat me with your grade 3 human supreme cultivation. If you could cultivate for a few more years, you might, bang. Before the Hound of Hell could finish its sentence, its body was sent flying and slammed heavily into the wall. I'm going to die. Ouyang Lun's eyes widened when he saw the Hound of Hell's miserable state and cursed. After all this time, this Hound of Hell was actually so weak. How surprising. Chapter 1172. Dan Xie Ziyu Win. The Hound of Hell was a person who was willing to admit defeat. No, it should be a dog who was willing to admit defeat. Furthermore, the Hound of Hell even reminded Lin Fan before disappearing. Since you're in such a hurry to head to the third level, it seems like a friend is in trouble and needs a large amount of elixirs or herbs to replenish vitality. However, you have to remember that the third level is very complicated. Remember not to act impulsively. Wung wung. As soon as it finished speaking, the Hound of Hell's body gradually turned illusory. Eventually, it turned into an afterimage and blended into the void. Ningyu, are we really going to the third level? Ouyang Lun asked hesitantly when he saw the Hound of Hell disappear. Although Ningyu had defeated the Hound of Hell easily, Ouyang Lun wasn't deaf. He heard the Hound of Hell's words clearly. Even someone as strong as the Hound of Hell was a little worried, let alone them. Why are you talking so much nonsense? You stay here. I'll head to the third level myself. Even without Ouyang Lun's reminder, Ningyu had no intention of bringing Ouyang Lun to the third level. Even with Ouyang Lun's cultivation base, he probably wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure of the third level. Alright, I'll stay. If there's any commotion outside, I'll inform you immediately. Ouyang Lun was waiting for this sentence. When Ningyu told him to stay, he hurriedly replied. Catcher. Ningyu couldn't be bothered with Ouyang Lun. He immediately tore open the void and dived in. The pressure on the third level was much stronger than the second level. Even though Ningyu was prepared, he nearly fell for it. Swish. Swish. As soon as Ningyu entered the third level, he felt two beams of cold light coming at him from two directions. Kai. Kai. The two beams of cold light were extremely fast. As they rubbed against the air, they let out sizzling sounds. Not good. At the critical moment, Ningyu's eyes turned cold and he immediately dodged to the side. Boom. As Ningyu's speed was extremely fast, the two beams of cold light collided. The cold lights collided, and even space itself became extremely unstable, trembling. In the first place, the third floor of the treasury was a newly opened space. It was inevitable that it would be unstable. Who dares to trespass here? As soon as Ningyu steadied himself, he heard a loud shout. Hearing the reprimand, Ningyu immediately turned around. In front of Ningyu, there was a middle-aged man dressed in light blue robes, who exuded an imposing aura without being angry. Late 8th grade human sovereign? Sensing the aura emanating from the middle-aged man, Ningyu slightly knitted his brows. With your late phase 8th grade sovereign cultivation, this space shouldn't have been opened by you. Of course it wasn't him. As soon as Ningyu's voice rang out, an old man appeared beside him. The old man's cultivation was clearly much higher than the middle-aged man's, reaching the 9th grade human sovereign realm. However, the old man looked rather weak. He must have suffered serious injuries. Old fart, I advise you to hand over the Shenyang pills. Otherwise, I'll cripple you. Seeing the old man, the middle-aged man fiercely said, if it wasn't for your protection, the demon lord would have been killed by us long ago. Why would we wait till now? But that's fine too. As he spoke, the middle-aged man changed the topic and continued, before the demon lord died, he passed all his Shenyang pills to you. Since I've found you, it means that I've found a large amount of Shenyang pills. You're dreaming if you want to get the Shenyang pills from me, the old man coldly said. Ha ha ha. The middle-aged man raised his head and laughed. Old fart, don't tell me that you've placed all your hopes on this trash. A third-grade human sovereign trash, I can kill him with a wave of my hand. Pardon my intrusion, but I heard you guys mentioning the demon lord. Can you tell me what's the relationship between you guys and the demon lord? Ning Yu slightly furrowed his brows. There's no harm in telling you. I'm called Dan Shezi, a member of the Pill Success Continent's Alchemy Union. As for this old fellow, he's called Dan Guzi, also a member of the Alchemy Union. However, Dan Shezi paused for a moment before continuing. Dan Guzi is a traitor of the Alchemy Union. He was the one who let the Devil Venerable escape, and before the Devil Venerable died, he took all of the Devil Venerable's Shenyang pills into this sealed space. If I hadn't left an imprint on Dan Guzi's body, I'm afraid that I would never have been able to find him. I understand. Ning Yu nodded. You have a grudge with the demon lord, while Dan Guzi is on good terms with him. So what if you understand? Do you think you can help Dan Guzi? Dan Shezi curled his lips in disdain. Dan Shezi, I'll help you deal with Dan Shezi. Give me 100 Shenyang pills. Ignoring Dan Shezi's mockery, Ning Yu turned to Dan Guzi. Whoosh. Ning Yu's demand wasn't just shocking to Dan Shezi. Even the person in question, Dan Guzi, was shocked. 100 Shenyang pills? How could Ning Yu say such a thing? Although the demon lord was an earth supremacy when he was alive, he did have a few hundred Shenyang pills. But the demon lord and Dan Guzi had used up a few hundred Shenyang pills on the way. Right now, Dan Guzi only had 80 Shenyang pills left. I only have a total of 80 Shenyang pills on me. I can't give them all to you. Dan Guzi's expression was dark. How about this? I'll leave 10 Shenyang pills for you, but you have to give the remaining 70 to me. Ning Yu's voice was low. Seeing that Dan Guzi was about to refuse, Ning Yu continued, don't be in such a hurry to refuse. Although I'm asking for 70 Shenyang pills, I can promise you that I will help you recover to your peak as soon as possible. You're certain that you can heal my injuries? Dan Guzi's mouth was agape, a look of disbelief on his face. While escaping from the Alchemy Union's experts, Dan Guzi had been poisoned. Snake-scorpion poison. Snake-scorpion poison was an extremely terrifying poison. In truth, when he had first been poisoned, Dan Guzi had a total of 160 Shenyang pills on him. After all these years, Dan Guzi had used up a total of 80 Shenyang pills to preserve his life. Otherwise, he would have long since died from the poison. I don't dare to say that I have a 100% chance of curing snake-scorpion poison, but I have at least an 80% chance. Ning Yu didn't make his words sound so certain. After all, even horses stumble. He couldn't be too certain. All right. I agree. 70 Shenyang pills. Dan Guzi had a premonition that this was an opportunity. He had been trapped in this space for many years. He had originally thought that he would be slowly tortured to death by Dan Guzi. Who would have thought that there would be a glimmer of hope at the darkest hour? Ning Yu's appearance had given him hope. Are you daydreaming? Chapter 1173. A clay bodhisattva crossing the river. In Dan Xiezi's view, whether it was Ning Yu or Dan Guzi, they weren't his match. Dan Guzi might be a little troublesome, but he could kill Ning Yu in one move. Where did Ning Yu get the courage to be conceited enough to think that he could kill him? Noisy. Since he had come to an agreement with Dan Guzi, Ning Yu would naturally help him get rid of Dan Xiezi. With a cold snort, Ning Yu's figure flashed and he immediately flew out. While fighting against Dan Xiezi, Ning Yu looked down on him on the surface, but he was secretly very careful. After all, Dan Xiezi was a late-stage rank 8 human sovereign, and his strength was not weak. Courting death. As Dan Xiezi watched Ning Yu approach him, a vicious look appeared on his face. With a low roar, Dan Xiezi clenched his fists and suddenly punched out. Swoosh. Swoosh! Two rays of light shot out from Dan Xiezi's fists and flew towards Ningyu. It's a soul attack fist technique. Feeling the soul power ripple from the light, Ningyu's heart trembled slightly and he quickly retreated. Ningyu could clearly feel that this punch from Dan Xiezi was extremely powerful. It was a soul attack fist technique. Universe palm. As he retreated, Ningyu gathered his middle stage rank 7 soul power on his wrists and waved his palms. Voila! Several palm prints appeared on Ningyu's palms and clashed with Dan Xiezi's palm prints. If the power was not enough, quantity would make up for it. Dan Xiezi had only sent out 2 palm prints, while Ningyu had sent out dozens of palm prints. I can't believe it. Dan Xiezi couldn't help but curse when he saw the sky full of blood-red palm prints. Catcher! Several palm prints clashed, letting out a crisp sound. Although Dan Xiezi had only sent out 2 palm prints, he was not at a disadvantage against Ningyu's dozens of palm prints. The 2 palm prints and the dozens of palm prints all disappeared. Dan Xiezi's face was extremely dark and ugly. He had endured in this sealed space for so long, all for the sake of killing Dan Guzi and stealing his Shenyang pills. After so many years, he had basically been fighting with Dan Guzi and neglected to train his martial techniques. Otherwise, with his late-stage rank 8 soul power, he would be able to heavily injure Ningyu. Dan Xiezi, it of a late-stage rank 8 human sovereign doesn't live up to your name. After that move, Ningyu took a few steps back and crossed his arms before his chest. Even an initial phase 3rd grade sovereign like me can't defeat you. Could it be that you've been cultivating for so many years? TSK, TSK. The world of cultivation doesn't suit you. Let me give you a piece of advice. Go home and raise pigs. Ah. Being ridiculed by Ningyu, Dan Xiezi roared like a madman. Brat, do you think this is all I can do? Today, I'll let you see what true strength is. Dan Xiezi took out a pill from his robes and threw it into his mouth. Catcher. As he chewed the pill, Dan Xiezi's aura began to rise rapidly. Peak late-stage 8th grade human supreme martial artist, peak 8th grade human supreme martial artist. With every passing second, Dan Xiezi's aura grew stronger and stronger. 10 seconds later, Dan Xiezi's soaring aura finally stopped. 9th grade initial human supreme martial artist. At this moment, Dan Xiezi's aura had soared from late 8th grade human sovereign to early 9th grade human sovereign. Furthermore, a terrifying pressure was being emitted from Dan Xiezi's body. It was clearly something that could only be emitted by a genuine initial phase 9th grade sovereign. Brat, I've already advanced to 9th grade human sovereign. How are you going to fight me? Raising his eyebrows, Dan Xiezi said arrogantly. Fat. Ningyu couldn't help but laugh. Who doesn't know how to brag? The breath-strengthening pill is a 9th grade spiritual pill that can allow a martial artist's aura to reach 9th grade human supreme martial artist's level for a short period of time. It might be able to scare others, but it's not enough to scare me. I forgot to tell you, I've made pills like the breath-strengthening pill before. Ha ha ha. Dan Xiezi was slightly startled at first, then he laughed maniacally. You're only a 7th grade intermediate alchemist, and you dare say that you've made the breath-strengthening pill before? What a joke. We'll know whether I'm a 9th grade human supreme martial artist or not after a fight. Ningyu didn't want to waste time with Dan Xiezi. He immediately took out the red demon sword and slashed out several sword rays. Dozens of sword radiance shot out and surrounded Dan Xiezi in the middle. Child's play. Surrounded by so many sword radiances, the worry in Dan Xiezi's eyes flashed for a moment before quickly disappearing. Ningyu's guess was right. Dan Xiezi had indeed consumed the breath-strengthening pill, a pill that could increase one's aura for a short period of time. Dan Xiezi originally thought that as long as he consumed the breath-strengthening pill, he would be able to fool Ningyu. However, no matter how much he calculated, he failed to calculate that Ningyu was a heavenly sovereign in his previous life, a pinnacle 9th grade alchemist who had personally refined the breath-increasing pellet. Thus, Ningyu was extremely sensitive to the aura of the pellet. Dan Xiezi had to change his strategy. He wanted to use his soul energy to completely suppress Ningyu. Whoosh! With a thought, Dan Xiezi's soul energy rushed out of his body and arrived before Ningyu. Under Ningyu's frightened gaze, his soul energy entered Ningyu's consciousness. Let's see what you can do. The moment his soul energy entered Ningyu's consciousness, Dan Xiezi said coldly, "Your soul energy is only at 7th grade intermediate stage, but I am at 8th grade advanced stage. You're still not strong enough to fight me, is that so?" However, just as Dan Xiezi's cold words left his mouth, the corner of Ningyu's mouth curled upwards and he spoke in an indifferent tone. "In my sea of consciousness, even a 9th grade soul force would not be able to contend against me. Have you lost your mind?" Dan Xiezi asked in shock. A 7th grade intermediate stage soul force dared to fight against a 8th grade advanced stage soul force? Describing Ningyu as a lunatic would not be an exaggeration. When he was at the Alchemist Union, Dan Xiezi had seen many geniuses. The strength of those geniuses' soul energy was not any weaker than Ningyu's. Even those alchemy Dao geniuses couldn't compete with him by relying on soul force alone, let alone Ningyu. Therefore, in Dan Xiezi's eyes, Ningyu was already a dead man. He was only half a step away from death. As long as he circulated his soul energy, Ningyu would die without a doubt. Remember this in your next life. When you meet someone with a soul energy much stronger than yours, you must seal your own consciousness. Do not let their soul energy enter your consciousness. Dan Xiezi said coldly, as if he had everything planned out already. Dan Xiezi, have you forgotten about me? Seeing Dan Xiezi's cold expression, Dan Jiuzi scolded, "My soul energy is at the peak of 8th grade advanced stage soul force. If I join hands with Ningyu, we can easily devour your soul energy." You. Chapter 1174. Despair. Dan Xiezi, do you think I'm a 3-year-old? If you had a way to kill me, you would have done it long ago. Why would you wait until now? Haha, since you want to die, I'll help you out. Smiling slightly, Dan Xiezi charged at Dan Guzi. Right now, Dan Xiezi was fighting on both sides. On one side, he was using his spiritual strength to deal with Ningyu, while on the other, he was using his martial power to deal with Dan Guzi. Bang! Dan Guzi had been poisoned by the serpent scorpion venom, and his power was less than a tenth of his peak. Pil Guzi was sent flying dozens of meters away by Dan Xiezi's fist. Fart. Vomiting a mouthful of blood, Dan Guzi's face turned pale. What? Why didn't you dodge? To tell the truth, Dan Xiezi was very puzzled that he had been able to hit Dan Guzi so easily. In the decades they had been in this space, Dan Xiezi and Dan Guzi had exchanged over 1,000 blows. Each time, Dan Guzi had been at a complete disadvantage. But although he was at a disadvantage, Dan Xiezi had no way of killing Dan Guzi. In fact, he couldn't even touch Dan Guzi's body. That was because Dan Guzi was even more familiar with this space than he was. Dan Guzi was also very adept at controlling space. Dan Xiezi was very puzzled. Why hadn't Dan Guzi dodged this time? Why should I dodge? Dan Guzi shrugged. All your spiritual strength is focused on controlling Ningyu. What danger could I possibly be in? Ha ha ha. Dan Xiezi laughed maniacally after being asked a few questions by Dan Guzi. Your head has finally opened. Now I'll let you know what it means to fart. Sometimes, the more arrogant you were, the more cruel you were. Dan Xiezi's maniacal laughter was interrupted by the sound of blood spurting out of his mouth. Impossible. Dan Xiezi hastily looked at Ningyu. His mouth was wide open, his face filled with disbelief. His late rank 8 spiritual strength had lost its connection to him. In other words, Ningyu had cut off the connection between him and his soul power, causing him to completely lose his soul power. Nothing is impossible. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu said in a deep voice, "You're stupid enough to fight on your own side and ignore me. Although your soul force is slightly stronger than mine, I am the master of my sea of consciousness." Poochie. Dan Xiezi spat out another mouthful of blood. The cold expression on his face became even more obvious. Careless. How careless. If he had known this would happen, Dan Xiezi would definitely have focused on dealing with Ningyu. Once he was done with Ningyu, he would go deal with Dan Guzi. Now Dan Xiezi finally understood why Dan Guzi had chosen to fight him head-on instead of dodging. Everything was for Ningyu. Everything was to buy time for Ningyu. Dan Guzi, Remember your promise. Glancing at Dan Guzi, Ningyu's body became illusory, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Dan Guzi. Hit the snake where it hurts, don't hold back. This was Ningyu's code of conduct. Ningyu was no saint. Since he had decided to be enemies with Dan Xiezi, he would definitely use all his strength. Clenching his right hand into a fist, he sent a violent Yuan Qi gale towards Dan Xiezi. You want to kill me? Not so easy. Dan Xiezi's face revealed a vicious expression as he went berserk. In his berserk state, Dan Xiezi's strength had clearly increased. But without his soul force, Dan Xiezi was no match for Ningyu. Bang! 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 On top of that, Ningyu's punches were extremely fast. Every single punch landed on Dan Xiezi's chest, causing him to continuously retreat. After being hit by Ningyu's punches, Dan Xiezi's aura rapidly declined. In a short period of time, he had already fallen from a late-stage 8th grade human supreme to an early-stage 8th grade human supreme. Furthermore, Dan Xiezi's aura continued to decline. No. I'm willing to surrender. Seeing that his aura was about to fall to a 7th grade human supreme, Dan Xiezi hurriedly said. Sure. Ningyu instantly stopped and stared at Dan Xiezi with interest. Surrendering is fine. Open your mind and let my soul force enter your sea of consciousness. Fine. Dan Xiezhi's face darkened as he gritted his teeth. For the sake of survival, Dan Xiezhi was willing to do anything, including surrendering. Ningyu, be careful. It might be a trap. Seeing that Ningyu wanted to subdue Dan Xiezhi, Dan Guzi hurriedly reminded him. As far as I know, when Dan Xiezhi was on the brink of death, he used this method to successfully escape and even killed a peak 8th grade human supreme. It's fine. Dan Xiezhi can't cause too much trouble. Waving his hand, Ningyu signaled Dan Guzi not to worry. Ningyu was still very confident in dealing with Dan Xiezhi, who had lost his soul force. Whoosh! With a thought, Ningyu separated a special wisp of soul force and sent it straight into Dan Xiezhi's sea of consciousness. Good chance. The moment Ningyu's soul force entered Dan Xiezhi's sea of consciousness, Dan Xiezhi's eyes lit up and he immediately sealed Ningyu's soul force. Brat, I've mastered an extremely vicious spell. As long as I seal a wisp of your soul force, I can heavily injure you. Dan Xiezhi said sinisterly. Let me give you a piece of advice. Hurry up and surrender. Otherwise, I will activate the spell and you will die without a grave. I'll give you a chance. Ningyu crossed his arms in front of his chest and said indifferently. Fine. Dan Xiezhi did not hesitate and immediately activated the spell to control Ningyu's soul force. However, just as Dan Xiezhi activated the spell, he let out a loud cry and spat out a mouthful of blood. What's going on? This sudden turn of events caused Dan Xiezhi's mouth to gape in shock. Why was it that when he used Ningyu's soul force to cast a spell, he ended up being the one injured? I got it. At that moment, Dan Xiezhi thought of a possibility. You. The soul force you sent into my sea of consciousness is mine. You just blocked it off. Dan Xiezhi almost went crazy. The soul force in his sea of consciousness did not belong to Ningyu. It belonged to him. Now this was awkward. He originally wanted to use a secret spell to severely injure Ningyu. Who would have thought that he would be the one to be hit? Dan Xiezhi, if I were you, I would find a piece of tofu and kill myself. Curling his lips, Ningyu raised his brows and said, if I'm not wrong, you still have an ancient scroll on you. Once you activate that ancient scroll, I won't be able to fight back at all. What a pity. Because you didn't want your cultivation to regress, you ended up disappearing into thin air. The reason why Ningyu did not kill Dan Xiezhi right away was because he was afraid that Dan Xiezhi would use up his life force to activate the ancient scroll. Now that Dan Xiezhi had been hit and was lying on the ground like a dead dog, Ningyu had nothing to worry about. Moving his feet, Ningyu arrived in front of Dan Xiezhi and reached out to search Dan Xiezhi's body. Chapter 1175. Chapter 1175. Healing after a while, Ningyu retracted his palm. There was a black scroll in his hand. Hiss. The scroll wasn't particularly big, but the terrifying essence chi fluctuations emitted from it still made Ningyu gasp in shock. Looking at the scroll in his hand, Ningyu's face turned solemn. Not only did the scroll emit a terrifying yuan chi fluctuation, but it also had a terrifying suction force. Ningyu could clearly feel that the only way to activate the scroll was to consume his life force. In other words, to activate the scroll, one's life force was the price. With Ningyu's current life force, if he activated the scroll, he would be able to fight against a 9th-grade human supreme. Dan Xiezi, you are really my lucky star. Keeping the scroll, Ningyu said to Dan Xiezi, if you have any last words, say them. I will try my best to fulfill them. Die. Dan Xiezi was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. If he had known this would happen, he would have used the ancient scroll earlier. Even if he had to consume his life force, he would not have hesitated. At least he would have been able to survive, unlike now, where everything was gone and Ningyu had the upper hand. When a person was angry, they would always be able to explode with terrifying power. Dan Xiezi was no exception. He used all the strength in his body to throw out a punch, bringing with it a violent yuan chi gale, towards Ningyu's head. As the saying goes, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Even though Dan Xiezi was severely injured, his punch was still very powerful. Ningyu did not dare to be slow. He quickly wrapped his yuan chi around his wrist and threw a punch. Kai Kai. Relatively speaking, Ningyu's attack was much stronger than Dan Xiezi's. The air let out a hissing sound as Ningyu's fist collided with Dan Xiezi's right hand. Crack. Ah. A crisp sound, accompanied by a miserable shriek that sounded like a pig being slaughtered, resounded in the area. Thump. After a miserable scream, Dan Xiezi's body fell heavily to the ground. At this moment, Dan Xiezi from the Pill Completion Mainland's Alchemy Union was killed by Ningyu. Dan Guzi, 70 Shenyang pills. After killing Dan Xiezi, Ningyu extended his right hand towards Dan Guzi. Hand it over. Pill Guzi's expression was extremely gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. He had a total of 80 Shenyang pills on him. If he were to give 70 to Ningyu, he would only be left with 10. 10 Shenyang pills might seem like a lot, but he was poisoned by the snake-scorpion venom and required Shenyang pills to sustain his life at all times. If he were to give all of his Shenyang pills to Ningyu, the consequences would be dire. Ningyu, you need to expel the snake-scorpion venom from my body first. Pill Guzi clenched his teeth. Pill Guzi knew that this request would definitely displease Ningyu. After all, he had already made an agreement with Ningyu. Ningyu would help him deal with Dan Xiezi, and he would give Ningyu 70 Shenyang pills. Now that he was the one who went back on his word, he naturally felt ashamed. Swish. As expected, Ningyu's face darkened upon hearing Pill Guzi's words. If I can kill Dan Xiezi, then I can kill you. Ningyu's words came out of his mouth. I'll give you one last chance. Take out 70 Shenyang pills. Otherwise, I can't guarantee what will happen. You must first expel the snake-scorpion venom from my body. Pill Guzi's stance was very firm. For him, the last straw to clutch at was Ningyu. If Ningyu didn't help him, he would very likely die in this space. Pill Guzi knew his body's situation better than anyone else. Without anyone's help, he could only last 3 days at most. After 3 days, the snake-scorpion venom would seep into his heart. At that time, not even a god would be able to save him. Therefore, Ningyu was a life-saving straw, and he must grab it. Ari, you're forcing me to make a move. Sighing lightly, Ningyu reached into his robes and took out the red devil sword. Seeing the red devil sword in Ningyu's hand, Pill Guzi's heart shook. He had a bad feeling. Ningyu taking out the red devil sword meant that Ningyu wanted to kill him. I can swear an oath to the heavenly Tao that as long as you do your best to expel the snake-scorpion venom from my body, whether you succeed or not, I will give you all the Shenyang pills. At this critical moment, Pill Guzi hurriedly said, furthermore, I will promise to protect you unconditionally for a month. That seems very tempting. Ningyu frowned slightly. Since you're so sincere, I'll first help you expel the snake-scorpion venom from your body. I, Pill Guzi, swear an oath to the heavenly Tao. If Ningyu helps me expel, Pilguzi forced out a drop of essence blood and swore the oath in front of Ningyu. Sit down and relax your mind. No matter what's going on in your body, don't move, said Ningyu after Danguzi swore an oath to the heavenly Taos. Swish. Since he'd already sworn the oath, Pilguzi could only trust Ningyu. Without a second word, Pilguzi sat down. Swish. As soon as Pilguzi sat down, Ningyu sent a wisp of his spiritual strength into Pilguzi's body. My God, my God. When his spiritual strength entered Pilguzi's body and saw his organs, Ningyu couldn't help but curse. Terrifying. Extremely terrifying. Of Pilguzi's organs, only his heart was still intact. Everything else had begun to rot. Luckily, you ran into me. Otherwise, even a god wouldn't be able to save Pilguzi after a while. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu carefully controlled his spiritual strength and circulated it through Pilguzi's body. With every second that passed, a small drop of black liquid would flow out of Pilguzi's skin. This black liquid was the venom of the snake-scorpion venom. I need to speed up. Narrowing his eyes, Ningyu once more sent a wisp of spiritual strength into Pilguzi's body, focusing all his attention on expelling the snake-scorpion venom. Based on the previous speed, Ningyu would need at least a few hours to help Pilguzi recover to his peak condition. But now, he estimated that he would only need an hour, or even less, for Ningyu to completely expel the snake-scorpion venom from Pilguzi's body. On this side, Ningyu was still working hard to help Pilguzi expel the snake-scorpion venom. In the Imperial Palace, in Ouyang Lun's room. PFFFT. Xielan felt a sweetness in his throat as he spurted a mouthful of blood. Elder Xie, are you alright? Xielan's situation had caused the hearts of Venerable Talisman Marshal and Yun Mu to tighten as they spoke out anxiously. I'm fine. Wiping the blood off the corner of his lips, Xielan fiercely said, those from the Divine Heaven Gate are too despicable. They actually launched a sneak attack on me when I wasn't paying attention. Forget it. Juser and the rest are all 5th grade sovereigns, 3 absolute geniuses. Even if they fought you head-on, you wouldn't be able to win. In another corner of the room, the Dark Emperor rolled his eyes. Let me remind you, the clones of the Great Desolation Venerable are all pinnacle 8th grade sovereigns. The moment his main body comes, we'll all be finished. Ha ha ha. When the Dark Emperor's voice landed, a burst of laughter resounded from the void. Buzz. Chapter 1176. The Great Desolation Venerable's Attack. Rustle. Looking at the black-robed cultivator, the Dark Emperor's voice came to an abrupt halt. Aside from the Dark Emperor, even the Sword of Evil and Xielan had a drastic change in their expressions as their hearts sank to the bottom. 9th grade sovereign. The Sword of Evil and the rest could clearly determine that the black-robed cultivator's cultivation was at the 9th grade sovereign realm. Ouyang Lun had sent many transcendent grade origin crystals, royal grade origin crystals, and even a few 8th grade elixirs. However, those items weren't enough for the Sword of Evil and Xielan to recover to their peak state. Furthermore, even if they recovered to their peak state, they wouldn't be a match for the black-robed cultivator. Where's Ningyu? Why isn't he here? The black-robed cultivator asked as he swept his gaze across the room. Ningyu has already left the Great Xia Kingdom, the Dark Emperor said coldly. The black-robed cultivator was a 9th grade sovereign. For the sake of Ningyu's safety, the Dark Emperor decided to lie. After your clone exploded, Ningyu immediately left the Great Xia Kingdom. If I'm not wrong, he should be in the Lanqing Kingdom right now. Haha, I didn't expect you guys to know that I'm the Great Desolation Venerable. The Great Desolation Venerable said with a smile. I don't believe a single word you guys said. After a brief pause, the Great Desolation Venerable continued, the heavens are merciful. I'll give you guys 3 minutes. I want to see Ningyu and Lu Wei in 3 minutes. Otherwise, boom. The Great Desolation Venerable's eyes turned cold as a terrifying aura was unleashed from his body, pressing towards the Sword of Evil and the rest. Fart. Under the pressure of the Great Desolation Venerable's aura, the Sword of Evil vomited a mouthful of blood as his aura weakened. Fut. Even the Sword of Evil vomited blood. One could imagine that Xielan, the Dark Emperor, and the rest wouldn't have a good ending. Fortunately, Honorable Da Huang did not use his full strength. Otherwise, with the cultivation of the Dark Emperor, Dong He, and the others, they would have died long ago. Sovereign Great Desolation found a chair and sat down as he shut his eyes to recuperate. Swoosh. On the surface, the Great Wilderness Venerable seemed to be resting with his eyes closed. In actual fact, the Great Wilderness Venerable had already released his soul power and perception to probe the Imperial Palace carefully. The main reason why Reverend Great Desolation didn't kill the Sword of Evil and the others was that he was afraid that Ningyu would leave the Da Xia kingdom. As long as he could control the Sword of Evil and the others, even if Ningyu were to leave the Da Xia kingdom, the Honorable Great Desolation would have a way to bring him back. What now? Xielan approached the Sword of Evil and whispered as the Reverend of Great Wilderness was probing the imperial family. Wait. Venerable Sword Evil was a man of few words, he only said one word. Wait. Xielan's face was filled with confusion. Logically speaking, he had to think of a way to escape or fight. He had to come up with a plan. The Honorable Great Desolation gave them 3 minutes and 3 minutes would soon pass. If the Honorable Great Desolation started a massacre, wouldn't they be in serious trouble? We can only wait. It's impossible for us to escape. The Sword of Evil said in a deep voice, the reason why the Honorable Great Desolation didn't kill us right away means that we are still useful to him. What we have to do now is to wait. The Sword of Evil is right. The Honorable Great Desolation definitely wants to use us to lure Ningyu out. As long as we don't say anything, he won't dare to do anything to us. The Dark Emperor nodded. Bang. However, as soon as the Dark Emperor finished his sentence, his body flew out and slammed against the door. Crack. The wooden door was smashed into smithereens. The Dark Emperor wasn't in his peak condition to begin with. Now that he was ambushed by the Honorable Great Desolation, it made things worse. Tell me where Ningyu is, or I'll start with you. The Honorable Great Desolation retracted his senses and said coldly, steamed dog meat is a good dish. The Honorable Great Desolation chose to attack because he couldn't find Ningyu in the royal family. His goal was to find Ningyu. How could he not be angry when he couldn't find him? I told you long ago that Ningyu went to the Lanqing kingdom, but you didn't believe me. The Dark Emperor clenched his teeth and said with pride. Bang, bang, bang. The Honorable Great Desolation would never hold back against a tough opponent like the Dark Emperor. He clenched his fists and threw a few punches, each landing on the Dark Emperor's body. The Honorable Great Desolation was a 9th grade human supreme while the Dark Emperor was a 3rd grade intermediate human supreme. Although the Dark Emperor gathered all his vitality on the surface of his skin, he still couldn't defend against the Honorable Great Desolation's powerful attacks. The Dark Emperor suffered a total of 30 punches. Out of the 30 punches, only one was fatal, which was the last punch. The Honorable Great Desolation swung his wrist and threw another punch with his right hand. Catcher. The fist came into contact with the Dark Emperor's chest and broke a few of his ribs. You. The Dark Emperor's mouth was agape as he looked at the Honorable Great Desolation in horror. He stretched out his right hand and said, "You've actually reached the pinnacle of early stage 9th grade human supreme. You're only half a step away from advancing to the middle stage 9th grade human supreme." Thump. The Dark Emperor's head tilted and he fell to the ground, fainting. You're smart. I'm indeed a pinnacle of early stage 9th grade human supreme. Curling his lips, the Honorable Great Desolation laughed. I wanted to kill you, but your identity as a purple-gold sky-devouring hound saved your life. Otherwise, you would have been long dead. What are you trying to do? The Dark Emperor said coldly. I've already said that steamed dog meat is a good dish. I'm going to steam you alive. The Honorable Great Desolation waved his sleeves and a giant elixir furnace flew out, expanding in the room. Rustle. A minute later, when the elixir furnace had expanded by several folds, the Honorable Great Desolation grabbed the Dark Emperor and threw him into the elixir furnace. Shit. Seeing the Honorable Great Desolation's actions, the Sword of Evil let out a deep roar and swiftly charged out, using all his strength to attack the Honorable Great Desolation. The Dark Emperor had fought alongside him. Even if he couldn't confront the Honorable Great Desolation, the Sword of Evil had to think of a way to save the Dark Emperor. He wasn't willing to pay any price. 100 flowers bloom. Seeing the sword of evil making a move, Xielan also grabbed at the void. Along with the movement of Xielan's hands, several petals descended from the sky and surrounded the honorable Great Desolation. I never thought that you're from the 100 Flowers Palace. Sensing the petals that covered the sky, the honorable Great Desolation was briefly stunned before he continued, if your palace master came personally, I might be fearful. But if a middle-stage 8th grade sovereign like you makes a move, I can kill you with a wave of my hand. The honorable Great Desolation waved his sleeves as the word kill resounded. Whoosh! 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 Several cold lights flew out from the honorable Great Desolation's sleeves and came into contact with the petals in the sky. Rustle! The hundreds of petals couldn't put up any resistance against the dozens of cold lights and were instantly defeated. Chapter 1177. Poof! 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 Although those cold beams were obstructed by a few hundred petals, they still managed to obtain a complete victory against Venerable Talisman and the rest. Venerable Talisman, Yun Mu, and Dong He. The three of them were struck by the cold beams as they spurted blood from their mouths. They only lasted for a few minutes before they fainted like the Dark Emperor. Only a few minutes had passed since Venerable Great Desolation appeared. In just a few minutes, the Dark Emperor and Venerable Talisman had suffered heavy injuries and their fates were unknown. As for the Sword of Evil and Xielan, their conditions weren't perfect, and they were only a step away from death. I'll give you guys one last chance. Tell me where Ningyu is, or I'll make you guys suffer. Venerable Great Desolation's eyes emitted an eerie chill as he eerily said, I'll count to 3. If you guys don't tell me, I can only send you guys to hell. 1. Venerable Great Desolation stretched out his right index finger as he said in a solemn voice. The Sword of Evil and Xielan's faces were dark, but no one spoke a word. 2. The viciousness on Venerable Great Desolation's face grew more evident. The Sword of Evil and the rest still did not speak a word. 3. When the Great Wilderness Venerable uttered the third word, his face turned completely gloomy. Die. Venerable Great Desolation stomped on the ground as his body charged out like a sharp sword. Venerable Great Desolation had already reached the end of his patience. He had decided to kill the Sword of Evil and Xielan before using a secret technique to extract their memories. As long as he had their memories, he wouldn't have to worry about not being able to find Ningyu. Venerable Great Desolation wasn't the Dark Emperor. Extracting the memories of an 8th grade sovereign would greatly affect him. But to find Ningyu and Lu Wei, Venerable Great Desolation couldn't be bothered anymore. He had to take the risk. Before Venerable Great Desolation arrived before Xielan and the rest, a cold snort resounded in his ears. Shit! The cold snort caused Venerable Great Desolation's face to slightly change as he immediately retreated. Rustle! Rustle! Whoosh! In the next moment, 3 figures tore through the void and appeared in the room. Ningyu, leave quickly. You're not the Great Wilderness Reverend. Seeing that the martial artists were Ningyu and the others, the Sword of Evil hastily warned them. However, when the Sword of Evil saw the old man beside Ningyu, his voice stopped abruptly. From the old man, the Sword of Evil sensed an aura that was not weaker than that of the Venerable of Great Wilderness. 9th grade human supreme martial artists. The old man's cultivation was also at the 9th grade human supreme realm. Gulp. Venerable Sword Evil and Xielan exchanged a glance and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. They could see the shock in each other's eyes. Where did Ningyu go? He actually managed to get such powerful reinforcements. Could this old man be the ancestor of the royal family? Or could it be that the old man had a good relationship with Ningyu? All sorts of doubts rose in the hearts of the Sword of Evil and Xielan. Rustle. Ignoring the cold expression of the Great Wilderness Reverend, Ningyu instantly appeared before the Dark Emperor and the rest. Piak. Slapping his right hand on the Dark Emperor's chest, he tossed a Shenyang pellet into the Dark Emperor's mouth. Ningyu did the same action on the Talisman Supremacy, Yun Mu, Dong He and the rest. The Shenyang pellets that Ningyu fed them were specially refined by him. They were similar to the sacred aura. Phew. The Shenyang pellets had proven to be effective. After consuming the Shenyang pellet, the Dark Emperor, Talisman Supremacy, Yun Mu, and even Dong He opened their eyes and their auras improved. Shenyang pellet. The Great Wilderness Reverend coldly watched everything. That's right, at least you have a good eye. Ningyu said indifferently, Great Wilderness Reverend, I know you're from the Divine Heaven Gate, but you'll be disappointed if you want to kill me. Ha ha ha. Laughing maniacally, the Great Wilderness Reverend said, those that I, the Great Wilderness Reverend, want to kill haven't lived a day longer. Dan Guzi, how confident are you in killing the Great Wilderness Reverend? Ningyu couldn't be bothered to waste words with the Great Wilderness Reverend. Since Dan Guzi was here, the Great Wilderness Reverend would naturally be handled by Dan Guzi. After all, he'd spent a lot of effort to expel the serpent scorpion venom from Dan Guzi's body. Right now, his strength wasn't even a tenth of his peak. The task of dealing with the Great Wilderness Reverend was definitely on Dan Guzi's shoulders. There's no way to kill him. At most, we'll be evenly matched. Dan Guzi's expression was dark. Both sides were rank 9 human sovereigns, and Dan Guzi had just recovered from his illness. In terms of fighting strength, he was slightly weaker than the Great Wilderness Reverend. Fortunately, Dan Guzi's spiritual strength was extremely powerful. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to intimidate the Great Wilderness Reverend. Ningyu, I'll ask you one last time. Lu Wei, are you going to hand her over or not? The Great Wilderness Reverend's expression was cold as he fiercely demanded. Why do you have so much nonsense to say? Frowning slightly, Ningyu said, if you have the ability, then kill me or capture me. If you don't, then shut up and scram. You. Being rebuked by Ningyu, the Great Wilderness Reverend trembled in anger. But thinking of his goal this time, he took a deep breath and tore open the void with both hands, wanting to leave. Where there's life, there's hope. Furthermore, the Great Wilderness Reverend didn't believe that Dan Guzi would always be by Ningyu's side. As long as he could find a chance to capture Ningyu, all his problems would be easily resolved. I'll let you guys be smug for a few days. The corner of his mouth curled up, the Great Wilderness Reverend stepped into the void. Rumble. Just as the Great Wilderness Reverend's head entered the void, the entire space above the capital suddenly split open. Swish. 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 The void split open, and 3 figures emerged from the void. What's going on? Who are those 3? Why are they floating in the air? Who else could it be? They must be experts. It's best if we don't get involved. That's right. When immortals fight, we should hide early to avoid being implicated. Right. You're right. Even if the sky falls, Danwu College and the imperial family will hold it up. We shouldn't get involved blindly. After the 3 figures appeared, the capital was momentarily thrown into a panic. But the panic didn't last for long, and everything returned to normal. Shaw. The 3 figures landed on the streets of the capital and quickly blended into the crowd, disappearing from sight. While the 3 figures disappeared, in a certain room in the imperial family, Ningyu and Dan Guzi's expressions completely darkened. Their hearts sank to the bottom. Rank 9 human supremes. Ningyu and Dan Guzi could clearly sense that the leader of the 3 figures that had appeared in the void was a rank 9 human supremes. The other 2 cultivators weren't rank 9 human supremes, but their cultivation had reached the peak of rank 8 human supremes. Most importantly, Dan Guzi sensed an extremely familiar aura from the 3 of them. Chapter 1178. Venerable Ling Shu, could it be that those 3 have enmity with Ningyu's group? Seeing the changes in Ningyu's and Dan Guzi's expressions, a bold idea rose in Venerable Great Desolation's mind. Gritting his teeth, Venerable Great Desolation channeled his soul energy and sent a voice transmission to the 9th grade human sovereign on the streets of the capital. The person you're looking for is here. I'll block for you for now. Saying that, Venerable Great Desolation focused his mind and paid attention to any sudden situations. Rustle. On the streets of the capital, the 9th grade human supreme being stopped in his tracks when he heard the voice. Saber Mountain Venerable, what's wrong? Seeing that the 9th grade human sovereign had stopped, a pinnacle 8th grade human sovereign asked in puzzlement. Nothing, follow me. The old man called Saber Mountain Venerable shook his head and tore space apart before entering. Upon seeing Saber Mountain Venerable entering the void, the remaining 2 peak 8th grade Sovereign Venerables did not hesitate at all. They quickly followed suit and disappeared. Damn it! In the royal family's room, Ningyu's expression turned ugly when he sensed 3 powerful figures rushing towards him at high speed. As the saying went, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Ningyu could predict that the 3 experts from the Alchemy Union would definitely join forces with Venerable Great Desolation. At that time, they would lose the chance to escape. Let's go. Ningyu wasn't an indecisive person. He left as soon as he said he would. Grabbing Dark Emperor, Yunmu, and the others with his left and right hands respectively, Ningyu executed a secret art and tore through the void, flying far away. Bang! Ningyu's speed wasn't slow, but it didn't take long before he crashed into a transparent barrier. Buzz! Buzz! Following that, 3 figures appeared. It's here indeed. Locking his gaze on Dan Guzi, Saber Mountain Venerable's lips rose. Dan Guzi, I didn't expect your cultivation to not improve after fleeing for so many years. Saber Mountain Venerable, you've actually reached the middle phase 9th grade Sovereign. Dan Guzi's expression was very ugly. What is your goal in coming here? My goal? Heh, isn't that obvious? I'll bring you back to the Alchemy Union's headquarters and conveniently bring back the Shenyang pills left behind by the Devil Venerable, Blade Mountain Venerable answered with a faint smile. I was poisoned by the serpent scorpion venom. After all these years, I've used up most of my Shenyang pills. I don't even have one left, said Dan Guzi. Not a single one left. Saber Mountain Venerable shrugged and answered, it's true that you don't have any Shenyang pills with you, but, Saber Mountain Venerable 1 changed the topic and pointed at Ningyu. This young fella has Shenyang pills, and there are a lot of them, at least 10s of them. Hiss. Hearing the Blade Mountain Venerable's words, not only were the 2 pinnacle 8th grade sovereigns shocked, even the Great Desolation Venerable sucked in a cold breath. 10s of Shenyang pills? If he had all of them, he might even be able to advance to the intermediate 9th grade sovereign realm. The Great Desolation Venerable was vexed that he didn't execute his secret technique on Ningyu and take down Ningyu first. The only thing we can do now is to wait and see if we can get some soup. With the Blade Mountain Venerable around, the Great Desolation Venerable didn't dare to act recklessly. Given his initial 9th grade sovereign cultivation, he might not even be able to withstand a single move from the Blade Mountain Venerable. There was a huge difference between an intermediate 9th grade sovereign and an initial 9th grade sovereign. If only Supremacy Spiritual Shu was here. At this moment, the Great Desolation Venerable thought of Supremacy Spiritual Shu. Supremacy Spiritual Shu was the old friend he went to see after coming to the Great Xia Kingdom. Although they were called old friends, they only met once during the Black Moon Continent's Genius Tournament. Because Supremacy Spiritual Shu was an intermediate 9th grade sovereign, the Great Desolation Venerable had no choice but to pay him a visit. I'll tell Supremacy Spiritual Shu first. Turning his eyes, the Great Desolation Venerable secretly forced out a drop of blood essence and started training Supremacy Spiritual Shu. Brat, hand over the Shenyang pills and we can spare your life. After all, our target is Dan Guzi, not you. Beside the Blade Mountain Venerable, a peak 8th grade sovereign called Hefei said, don't think of putting up a futile resistance. If we want to kill you, it'll be easier than squashing an ant. That's right. Hand over the Shenyang pills and live. Otherwise, die. The other peak 8th grade sovereign was called Hishu. He was the brother of Hefei. Ningyu's face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. If it was just 2 peak 8th grade sovereigns and the Great Desolation Venerable, he wouldn't be afraid. But with the Blade Mountain Venerable around, he couldn't do anything. Helpless, Ningyu took out a storage bag and threw it to the Blade Mountain Venerable. Pa! Saber Mountain Venerable caught the storage bag firmly and tossed it into his arms without even looking at it. Don't make me repeat myself. Hand over all of your Shenyang pills. There were only 10 Shenyang pills in the storage bag that he gave to the Blade Mountain Venerable. That also meant that Ningyu still had over 60 Shenyang pills left. Ha ha ha. Why is the Imperial family so lively today? Just when Ning Yu wanted to take out the second storage bag, a burst of laughter resounded from the void. Crack. Thereafter, the void cracked and a grey-clothed elder appeared. Supremacy Spiritual Shu. Middle 9th Grade Sovereign. The Great Desolation Venerable and the Blade Mountain Venerable exclaimed the moment the grey-clothed elder appeared. But while the Great Desolation Venerable was delighted, the Blade Mountain Venerable had a grave expression. Just when he was about to obtain the dozens of Shenyang pills, a middle 9th grade sovereign appeared out of nowhere, which made the Blade Mountain Venerable unhappy. Despite being unhappy, the Blade Mountain Venerable continued, "I'm the Blade Mountain Venerable from the headquarters of the Elixir Formation continent. May I know where you're from?" The Blade Mountain Venerable's intention was clear. He would first introduce himself and use the headquarters of the Elixir Formation Union to suppress him. If the other party was a wandering cultivator without a sect, then today's matter would be resolved perfectly. If the other party was from a sect, then today would be troublesome. It doesn't matter where I'm from. What's important is that the headquarters of the Elixir Formation Union can't suppress me. Supremacy Spiritual Shu faintly said, "Isn't it stuffy to have so many people in this room? Me. I advise you not to be a busybody. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences." The Blade Mountain Venerable was prideful as he snorted. "Supremacy Great Desolation, why did you call me here?" Supremacy Spiritual Shu ignored the Blade Mountain Venerable's snort and turned towards the Great Desolation Venerable. "Ning Yu has dozens of Shenyang pills with him. The reason why I called you here is to split the Shenyang pills with you." The Great Desolation Venerable coldly continued, "According to my speculations, Ning Yu should have 60 to 70 Shenyang pills with him. How about we split it 50 to 50? Seeing that Supremacy Spiritual Shu wasn't speaking, the Great Desolation Venerable clenched his teeth. Chapter 1179. Chapter 1179, Soul Jade Pendant Sovereign Spiritual Shu, leave some leeway in case we meet again in the future. No matter what, I was the one who told you that there were Shenyang pills here. You can't not leave a single one for me, can you? Sovereign Great Desolation's face turned ugly when he saw that there was no reaction from Sovereign Spiritual Shu even after he offered a 90% split. Sovereign Spiritual Shu's table manners were too ugly. He was furious that he wasn't even leaving a single Shenyang pill for him. "You might have misunderstood my meaning." Sovereign Spiritual Shu shook his head. "There's nothing wrong with you wanting the Shenyang pills. You can only blame yourself for wanting to be enemies with Ning Yu. So what if I'm enemies with Ning Yu?" Sovereign Great Desolation's eyes widened in disbelief. Could it be that Sovereign Spiritual Shu and Ning Yu knew each other? Sovereign Great Desolation's face turned uglier and uglier at that thought. If Sovereign Spiritual Shu really knew Ning Yu and had a good relationship with him, then he was doomed today. After all, he wasn't that familiar with Sovereign Spiritual Shu. "Leave. Don't get involved in this or it won't be good for you." Reverend Lingshu didn't bother to explain too much. "All right." After Sovereign Saber Mountain and Sovereign Spiritual Shu appeared, Sovereign Great Desolation knew that it wouldn't end well for him if he stayed. His plan to fish in troubled waters had completely failed. Rather than staying behind to face danger, he might as well leave and find a chance to strike. Hold it. However, Sovereign Great Desolation had only taken a few steps when Sovereign Saber Mountain waved his hand. "Sovereign Great Desolation, you deal with Dan Guzi. Leave this mid-grade 9 human sovereign to me and let He Fei and He Shu snatch the Shenyang pills from that kid. Wouldn't that be great?" Swish. Sovereign Great Desolation stopped in his tracks. In truth, Sovereign Saber Mountain was a huge temptation to him. He wasn't too far away from the mid-grade 9 human sovereign realm. As long as he had a large amount of Shenyang pills, he had a high chance of advancing to the mid-grade 9 human sovereign realm. "Give me 10 Shenyang pills first. Otherwise, there's nothing to talk about." Although the Great Wilderness Venerable wanted to work with the Blade Mountain Venerable, the Great Wilderness Venerable was not a fool, and he knew that he was asking a tiger for its skin. Therefore, he first asked Saber Mountain Venerable for Shenyang pills. Let's see if Saber Mountain Venerable will give it to us. If Saber Mountain Venerable gave it to him, it would mean that Saber Mountain Venerable wanted to work with him. If not, whoosh. As soon as the Great Wilderness Venerable One had the thought, Blade Mountain Venerable tossed the storage bag to him. After catching the storage bag, Venerable Da Huang split a part of his perception to check it. Soon after, his face lit up with joy. 10 Shenyang pills. There were a total of 10 Shenyang pills in the storage bag, but Saber Mountain Venerable gave all of them to Ouyang Yangming. How is it? I'm very sincere. The corner of Saber Mountain Venerable's mouth rose. Dan Guzi is on par with you, so you just need to hold him back. No problem. Venerable Da Huang nodded heavily and said, Sigh. Just then, Reverend Spiritual Shu sighed out softly, Shenyang pills are mere worldly possessions. Why must we use force to settle it? Ha ha ha. Saber Mountain Venerable was startled at first, then he laughed out loud. If we don't settle it by force, are we going to play rock paper scissors? Oh, right. Suddenly, Saber Mountain Venerable seemed to have thought of something. Reverend Spiritual Shu, I understand what you mean. You want to compete in alchemy with me, right? I'll give you a chance. Let's compete in alchemy and see who can refine. It's indeed a competition in alchemy, but it's not me, Reverend Spiritual Shu shrugged. It's Ning Yu. Fart. Saber Mountain Venerable could not help but laugh when he heard Reverend Spiritual Shu's words. Ning Yu wanted to compete in alchemy with him? What a joke. One must know that he was a peak grade 8 alchemist. In a certain sense, he was not far from a grade 9 alchemist. Ning Yu was only a grade 7 alchemist. How could he beat him in alchemy? Don't misunderstand. What I meant was to let Ning Yu compete with the 2 alchemists you brought, Reverend Spiritual Shu reminded. Compete with He Fei and the others in alchemy? Although it was different from what he had expected, Saber Mountain Venerable was still shocked. He Fei was an early-stage grade 8 alchemist while He Shu was a middle-stage grade 8 alchemist. No matter who it was, Ning Yu could not win. Reverend Spiritual Shu, since we're going to bet, why don't we make it big? Saber Mountain Venerable said sinisterly while rolling his eyes. What kind of bet? Reverend Spiritual Shu asked calmly. It's simple. If Ning Yu wins, I won't ask him for the Shenyang pills. Of course, it's impossible for Ning Yu to defeat He Fei and the others in alchemy. Saber Mountain Venerable smirked. If Ning Yu fails, not only will I want the Shenyang pills from him, but I'll also want you to swallow this pill. Following that, Blade Mountain Venerable retrieved a black pill from his pocket. Initially, Saber Mountain Venerable did not have such an idea. However, Reverend Spiritual Shu's suggestion made him determined. He had to think of a way to get rid of Reverend Spiritual Shu. He was a middle-stage grade 9 human supreme. If he could obtain tens of Shenyang pills and use a secret technique to devour Reverend Spiritual Shu, Reverend Great Desolation, Dan Guzi, and everyone else in the capital, he would have a 90% chance of advancing to a late-stage grade 9 human supreme. This is the Black Moon mainland. It's worlds apart from Dan Cheng mainland. Even if I start a massacre here, it'll be difficult for it to be transmitted back to Dan Cheng mainland. Saber Mountain Venerable said fiercely. The bolder one was, the greater one's cultivation would be. You can't catch the wolf without risking the child. Saber Mountain Venerable, isn't this bet a little too unfair? Upon hearing Saber Mountain Venerable's words, Ning Yu's face turned sour. If I win, you won't lose anything. If I lose, you'll gain a lot. Is it unfair? I don't think so. Saber Mountain Venerable shrugged. If you lose, you'll only make Reverend Spiritual Shu devour one more pill. What's the big deal? Haha, it's just a pill. It's not a problem for me. Smiling, Reverend Spiritual Shu said, if Ning Yu wins, I don't want anything else but the blue jade pendant that you have. Swoosh. Reverend Spiritual Shu's faint laughter made Saber Mountain Venerable's heart skip a beat. Blue jade pendant. How did Reverend Spiritual Shu know that he had the blue jade pendant? The so-called blue jade pendant was a soul jade pendant that contained a lot of pure soul power. He had spent more than a decade to collect the pure soul power in the jade pendant. He still wanted to rely on the soul power in the jade pendant to make further progress and raise his soul power to the level 9 level. Saber Mountain Venerable's face darkened as he weighed the pros and cons. After a brief moment, he gritted his teeth and said, "All right, Reverend Spiritual Shu, I'll agree to your request. As long as Ning Yu defeats He Fei. No, as long as Ning Yu defeats He Fei and He Shu consecutively, I'll give you the jade pendant." In actuality, Saber Mountain Venerable was still worried. Otherwise, he would not have suggested for Ning Yu to defeat He Fei and He Shu. Chapter 1180. Begin refining wrong. Revered Spirit Shu shook his head and said, "If Ning Yu wins, your soul jade pendant won't be given to me, but to Ning Yu." To Ning Yu? Saber Mountain Venerable was puzzled. It didn't make sense. Revered Spirit Shu had gone through so much trouble. Could it be that it was all for Ning Yu? It was illogical. Unless, Saber Mountain Venerable One's face took on a ghastly expression when he thought about this. Lord Lingshu has been hiding in the Great Xia Kingdom to protect Ning Yu. Saber Mountain Venerable thought of such a terrifying possibility. If that was the case, then he would have to be extremely careful today. That's right, I'm not an alchemist. The soul force in the jade pendant is of little use to me. Overlord Lingshu nodded in agreement. All right. I promise you. As long as Ning Yu can defeat He Fei and He Shu in alchemy, I'll give this soul jade pendant to him, Saber Mountain Venerable said in a deep voice. Whoosh. Following that, Blade Mountain Venerable flicked his wrist and tossed the soul jade pendant into mid-air. The soul jade pendant that was floating in the air was constantly emitting pure soul power. Gulp. He Fei and He Shu gulped as they stared at the soul jade pendant in the air. One of them was an early-stage 8th grade alchemist, while the other was a middle-stage 8th grade alchemist. As long as they could obtain Saber Mountain Venerable's soul jade pendant, they would have a high chance of advancing to the next level. Blade Mountain Venerable scoffed, then he retrieved a storage bag and tossed it to He Fei. Here are the ingredients for refining the Spirit Extinction Pill. The Spirit Extinction Pill is a grade 7 elixir. I hope you won't let me down, Pa. After taking the storage bag, He Fei patted his chest and promised, "It's just a level 7 spirit severing pill. I can make it in 10 minutes and the quality won't be lower than supreme rank." He Fei said the last two words to Ning Yu. To He Fei, Ning Yu was a mid-stage grade 7 elixir master and it was impossible for him to beat him. He had refined the terminating spirit pill before, and it only took him 10 minutes to refine a supreme grade terminating spirit pill. But last time, he was a peak 7th grade alchemist. Now that he had advanced to an 8th grade primary alchemist, he was confident that he could concoct a supreme grade spirit severing pill within 10 minutes. What's there to be surprised about refining a transcendent grade spirit severing pill in 10 minutes? You really haven't seen the world yet. Curling his lips, Ning Yu said, "The ultimate spirit pill is a grade 7 primary medicinal pill. I can refine it in 5 minutes, and its quality is also transcendent grade." Poochie. He Fei and the rest couldn't help but laugh when they heard Ning Yu's words. Refining a transcendent grade spirit severing pill in 5 minutes. Who do you think you are? One must know that even Saber Mountain Venerable, who was at the peak of grade 8 alchemy master, dared not say that he could refine a supreme grade terminating spirit pill within 5 minutes every time. The ignorant are fearless. Saber Mountain Venerable waved his hand, and another interspatial bag flew over to Ning Yu. Let's begin. Don't waste time. Saber Mountain Venerable said solemnly when he saw Ning Yu take the interspatial bag. Wait. As soon as Saber Mountain Venerable finished speaking, Dan Guzi stepped forward and said to Ning Yu, "Give me your storage bag. I want to check the medicinal pills inside." It was better to be safe than sorry. Dan Guzi knew Saber Mountain Venerable's character. He wouldn't be at ease if he didn't check it first. What do you mean? How dare you suspect me? Saber Mountain Venerable said coldly. It's just a spirit-severing pill. I can't be bothered to tamper with it. I'm not suspecting you. I'm very suspicious of you. Dan Guzi carefully checked the ingredients in the interspatial bag and nodded. The ingredients are correct. There's no problem. Swish. In order to let Ning Yu defeat He Fei, Dan Guzi directly took out his personal cauldron. Dan Guzi's cauldron had 4 legs and 8 mouths. Multiple cauldrons. A good cauldron could increase the success rate of refining pills, and multiple cauldrons were already on the Heaven Cauldron ranking. Using a cauldron on the Heaven Cauldron ranking to refine pills would yield twice the result with half the effort. Dan Guzzi, the difference in alchemy standards isn't something a cauldron can make up for. Blade Mountain Venerable One curled his lips and said, "It's better for you to wash your neck so that it'll be easier for me to kill you later without dirtying my saber. The battle hasn't started yet. We don't know who will win yet." Dan Guzzi didn't care about Saber Mountain Venerable's threat at all. With Venerable Spiritual Void present, Dan Guzzi believed that Saber Mountain Venerable wouldn't dare to act rashly. At the very least, he would be safe before Venerable Spiritual Void left. "Ningyu, I'll give you a chance. Refine your pill first. If I start first, you won't have any hope," said He-Fei. "Hihi, what do you mean by hope?" "I'll give it to you for being able to concoct a transcendent-grade spirit-severing pill before me," Ningyu said with a smile. "A grade 7 spirit-severing pill is nothing to me." After smiling, Ningyu threw the cauldron above his head. His right hand stuck to the bottom of the cauldron while his left hand grabbed a medicinal ingredient and threw it inside. Sizzle. Strands of vital energy gathered on Ningyu's right hand and started to burn, emitting a scorching heat. As the energy burned, the temperature within the 4 cauldrons grew higher and higher. When the temperature of the pill furnace reached a certain limit, a medicinal herb that Ningyu had previously thrown inside emitted a kai-kai sound. With your refining speed, how can you refine a transcendent-grade spirit extinction pill in 5 minutes? He-Fei opened his mouth and stared at Ningyu with a dumbfounded expression. From the moment he threw the cauldron to the moment he refined the first medicinal ingredient, a full minute had passed. Based on this speed, Ningyu would need at least a few hours to refine the spirit extinction pill. Furthermore, it might not even be a transcendent-grade spirit extinction pill. There was a high chance it would be a low-grade spirit extinction pill. Watch carefully and learn well. He-Fei's eyes turned cold, and a palm-sized cauldron appeared in his hand. "Rise." With a low shout, the pill furnace flew into the air. The cauldron grew larger and larger. 3 seconds later, it was several times bigger. Swish, swish. He-Fei reached into his bag of holding and took out 10 medicinal ingredients. He threw them all into the cauldron. Sizzle. The 10 medicinal ingredients sizzled when they entered the cauldron. They were all refined. 10 medicinal ingredients in 3 seconds. He-Fei's actions caused Dan Guzzi's expression to turn cold. If this continued, He-Fei would be able to refine the spirit extinction pill in less than 10 minutes. From He-Fei's confident expression, Dan Guzzi could determine that He-Fei would definitely be able to refine a transcendent-grade spirit extinction pill. If that was the case, Ningyu would definitely lose. Isn't it just refining 10 medicinal ingredients at the same time? What's the big deal? Ningyu glanced at He-Fei and said faintly, "What's the big deal? Ha ha ha, who doesn't know how to brag? If you have the ability, refine 10 medicinal ingredients at the same time. No, as long as you can refine 5 medicinal ingredients at the same time, I'll admit that you're very amazing." Chapter 1181. Who will form the pill first? What's the use of admitting that I'm very powerful? Ningyu rolled his eyes and said disdainfully, "Are you admitting your failure because I can refine 5 medicinal herbs at the same time? You." He-Fei felt his face burning after being rebuked by Ningyu. He was furious. He did not dare to bet with Ningyu. Although he didn't think that Ningyu could refine 5 medicinal herbs at the same time, there were always exceptions. If Ningyu really refined 5 medicinal herbs at the same time, wouldn't he be dumbfounded? "Humph. I won't lower myself to your level." He-Fei scoffed coldly and said, "Let me remind you that I need at most 8 minutes to refine the supreme-grade spirit-severing pill. You better be careful." After saying that, He-Fei didn't say anything else. Instead, he focused all of his attention on refining the ultimate spirit pill. He-Fei knew very well that Saber Mountain Venerable was very concerned about whether he or Ningyu could refine a supreme spirit-severing pill first. If he managed to refine the extreme spirit pill before Ningyu, everything would be fine. His position in the Alchemy Union headquarters might even rise a little. However, if Ningyu managed to refine a supreme spirit extinction pill before him, then he would be done for, and he would definitely be finished. Saber Mountain Venerable, can He Fei do it? Seeing Ningyu slowly refining the terminating spirit pill, Reverend Great Desolation was still a little worried. Getting closer to Saber Mountain Supremacy Great Desolation whispered, Ningyu has 60 to 70 Shenyang pills with him. Nothing must go wrong. Hehe, don't worry about me. Saber Mountain Venerable smiled and said, Hefei's an early-stage grade 8 pill refinement master, whereas the ultimate spirit pill is only an early-stage grade 7 pill. He won't even need 10 minutes to refine a supreme ultimate spirit pill. If that's the case, I'm relieved. The Great Wilderness Venerable was finally relieved after hearing Saber Mountain Venerable's explanation. Venerable Da Huang knew that grade 7 pill refiner he and grade 8 pill refiner had sensed it. Without any special circumstances, it was impossible for a 7th grade alchemist to defeat an 8th grade alchemist. Whoosh! At this moment, Ningyu slapped the pill furnace with his right hand, attracting everyone's attention. With his left hand, Ningyu picked up the storage bag. Under everyone's shocked gaze, Ningyu threw the storage bag into the furnace. Voila! Ningyu's sudden action caused Venerable Great Desolation and the rest to widen their mouths as they stood rooted to the ground like wooden stakes. He Fei only refined 10 herbs at once, but Ningyu refined all the herbs and even his storage bag. Needless to say, Ningyu was really bold. Did he really have the strength, or was he just messing around? Everyone, including Danguzi and Spirit Void, thought that Ningyu was just messing around. This method can be used to refine low-tier medicinal pills, but how could a 7th-tier spirit extinction pill succeed? Pill Guzi was an alchemist, so he had the most authority. Ningyu's method of alchemy was suitable for alchemy pills below grade 6. Once the pill reached the 7th tier, using this method would require extremely powerful spiritual strength control. At the very least, one's spiritual strength control had to reach a terrifying level. Ningyu's spiritual strength is only at the mid-7th tier. There's no way he's a 9th grade alchemist. Pill Guzi's eyes turned. He wanted to find an excuse for Ningyu, as well as a way to comfort himself. However, no matter how he tried, he couldn't find an excuse for Ningyu. Even a 9th grade alchemist would find it hard to refine so many herbs at once. Ha ha ha. While Hefei was refining pills, he subconsciously split out a portion of his perception to pay attention to Ningyu. It was this touch of perception that stunned He Fei for a moment before he laughed maniacally at the sky. In fact, his wild laughter almost caused He Fei to explode his pill. Luckily, He Fei's spiritual strength was strong enough, which was why his pill didn't explode. If it was any other peak 7th grade alchemist, they wouldn't be able to do it as perfectly as He Fei. Ningyu, I only told you to refine 5 herbs at once. Why did you throw all the herbs into the furnace? To He Fei, he was someone who often hit others when they were down. Hitting others when they were down, hitting them when they were down, and killing them when they were down. He Fei was very attentive to these things. You should worry about yourself first. I still need 3 more minutes to form the pill. Although he couldn't be bothered with He Fei, Ningyu still reminded him out of kindness. Huh! He Fei was stunned at first, and then he laughed wildly again. Ningyu, you must have lost your mind. After I refine the transcendent grade spirit ending pill, I'll help you refine a mad dog pill so that you'll lose your mind sooner. Shut up. Before He Fei could finish his sentence, Saber Mountain Venerable said fiercely, if you don't focus on refining the pill, I'll kill you. As a peak 8th grade alchemist, Saber Mountain Venerable was sharper than He Fei. According to Saber Mountain Venerable's judgment, Ningyu had a 90% chance of refining a transcendent grade spirit ending pill. Moreover, he was 1 step ahead of He Fei. No, I have to think of a way to stop Ningyu. Saber Mountain Venerable's expression was grim. Stop Ningyu from refining the transcendent grade spirit ending pill. Those words filled Saber Mountain Venerable's mind, causing him to lose his composure. Saber Mountain Venerable. At that moment, Saber Mountain Venerable seemed to have noticed something, so he said calmly, You're a peak 8th grade alchemist. Who do you think will win this time? Swoosh. Saber Mountain Venerable regained his composure after hearing what Saber Mountain Venerable said. He Fei is from the Alchemy Union's headquarters, so I naturally think highly of him. I'm the opposite of you. Ning Yu is a mid-stage 7th grade alchemist. He's very talented, so I think more highly of him. Saber Mountain Venerable shook his head. So what if he's talented? He Fei is an early stage 8th grade alchemist. Before Saber Mountain Venerable said anything, He Shu, who was next to him, spoke coldly. Shut up. Saber Mountain Venerable glared at He Shu and said in a deep voice, that's how magical a competition is. Nobody knows who's going to win until the last moment. That's right, Saber Mountain Venerable is right, Saber Mountain Venerable said, He Fei might win, but Ning Yu might also win. Let's wait and see. Saber Mountain Venerable said coldly. Since Saber Mountain Venerable was going to intervene, Saber Mountain Venerable suppressed his thoughts for the time being. It was very likely that Ning Yu would win the first match. Drip. Drip. Saber Mountain Venerable and Saber Mountain Venerable stopped talking, causing the huge room to become extremely depressing. Bang. Fortunately, the depressing atmosphere did not last long before it was broken by a clear sound. He Fei slapped the cauldron with his palm. In an instant, the lid flew up, and a round pill flew out of the cauldron. Bang! At the same time, Ning Yu, who was on the other side, did the same thing. Swoosh! The round pill flew out of the cauldron too. Swoosh! 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 At that moment, everyone in the room shifted their gaze to Ning Yu and He Fei, as well as their palms. Chapter 1182. Condition. I didn't expect you to form the elixir at the same time as me. You're not simple indeed. I admit that I underestimated you. He Fei stared at Ning Yu and said in a deep voice, I refined a supreme spirit-severing elixir. Now, show the elixir in your hand to everyone to see if it's a supreme spirit-severing elixir. If you're also refining a supreme spirit-severing elixir, we'll have to have an additional round. If not, hehe, I'll be the winner today. Swish. He Fei's words shifted everyone's gaze from him to Ning Yu. Ning Yu, stop wasting time. Open your palm and let everyone see if you're refining a supreme spirit-severing elixir. Saber Mountain Venerable waved his hand and said, this is only the first round. I didn't expect you to be so weak. Why do I need to open my palm? Ning Yu frowned and asked in confusion. Sigh. Seeing Ning Yu's reaction, Supremacy Spiritual Shu sighed and expressed that he had overestimated Ning Yu. It was his miscalculation. If he had known, he wouldn't have allowed Ning Yu to compete with He Fei in elixir refinement. This doesn't make sense. According to my investigation, Ning Yu obtained the elixir of creation before. Could he have found someone else to refine that elixir of creation? Supremacy Spiritual Shu looked a little disappointed. The reason why he chose to let Ning Yu compete with He Fei and the others was because he had done his investigation and knew that Ning Yu obtained an elixir of creation. Combining it with Ning Yu's performance in the Great Xia Kingdom, he thought that it wouldn't be difficult for Ning Yu to refine a supreme spirit-severing elixir. Who would have thought that Ning Yu wouldn't be able to defeat He Fei and refine a supreme spirit-severing elixir? Ha ha ha, why did you open your palm? Saber Mountain Venerable laughed out loud and responded, of course, it's to prove if you're refining a supreme spirit-severing pill. Hefi has already refined a supreme spirit-severing pill, so you only need to prove that you… Wait. Ning Yu waved his hand and interrupted Saber Mountain Venerable. He asked in confusion, who told you that He Fei refined a supreme-grade ultimate spirit pill? Could it be that because both of you are from the Alchemy Union, you believe his words unconditionally? Boom. Ning Yu's words enlightened Venerable Spirit Shu and the others. That was right. Whether or not He Fei was refining a supreme spirit pill was just his words and it wasn't proven. At the thought of this, Venerable Spirit Shu said, Venerable Saber Mountain, get He Fei to open his palm first. I want to see if he's refining a supreme spirit-severing pill. You. Saber Mountain Venerable's face darkened. In actuality, Saber Mountain Venerable 1 could tell something was wrong from He Fei's eyes. The pill that He Fei refined was definitely not a transcendent-grade spirit-severing pill. At most, it was a superior-grade spirit-severing pill. Since you guys want to see, I'll show you. At that moment, Ningyu opened his right hand slowly. In the center of his palm, there was a white pill emitting a faint mist, lying flat on top of it. Supreme Spirit-Severing Pill. The elixir that Ningyu refined was a transcendent-grade spirit-severing pill, and its quality was so high that it was about to break through the limits of transcendent grade. He Fei, open your palm for everyone to see. Ningyu curled his lips and said to He Fei, if you're also refining a transcendent-grade spirit-severing pill, we'll have to add another round. Ningyu threw He Fei's words back at him. Crack, crack. He Fei's expression was terrible, and he clenched his fists so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. Let's compete again. He Fei scoffed coldly and raised his right hand high before slamming it down. Crack. The elixir shattered and scattered all over the ground. TSK, the almighty elixir refinement genius of the Elixir Refinement Union only managed to refine a superior-grade spirit-severing pill and couldn't even defeat me. If this gets back to the Elixir Refinement Union, I'm sure some people will be embarrassed, Ningyu said as he smacked his lips. I want you to die. After being mocked by Ningyu again and again, He Fei finally lost his mind. He stomped on the ground and charged forward. Bang! However, how could He Fei succeed in his sneak attack with Supremacy Spiritual Shu around? Before He Fei could get to Ningyu's side, Honorable Spiritual Shu threw a punch which landed right on He Fei's chest. The huge force forced He Fei back dozens of feet. Fart! He Fei spat out fresh blood and his face turned extremely pale. Supremacy Saber Mountain, you should know that you lost the bet. After forcing He Fei back, Supremacy Spiritual Shu didn't kill him. Instead, he said calmly, Ningyu defeated He Fei in elixir refinement. Does that soul jade pendant in the air belong to Ningyu now? Dream on. Supremacy Saber Mountain said coldly. Let me say this first. Ningyu has to defeat He Fei and He Shu before he can take away my soul jade pendant. Ningyu only defeated the early stage grade 8 elixir refinement master He Fei. If he wants to defeat the mid-stage grade 8 elixir refinement master He Shu, I'm afraid he has to go home and cultivate for a few more years. Cut the crap. Compete with He Shu in elixir refinement. Ningyu took a step forward and said, if I can defeat He Fei, I can defeat He Shu too. Want to defeat me? He Shu curled his lips and took out a medicinal dan from his robes. I am an 8th realm intermediate alchemist. But after consuming this medicinal dan, my soul strength will increase to the advanced stage of the 8th realm, making me an 8th realm alchemist. Crack. He Shu tossed the elixir into his mouth as he spoke. After chewing for a while, He Shu's soul power indeed increased to late stage grade 8. In other words, He Shu was a late stage grade 8 elixir refinement master now. The second challenge is to refine a grade 8 elixir, recovery elixir. Supremacy Saber Mountain did not waste any time. He took out 2 storage bags and tossed one to He Shu while the other to Ningyu. Pa. He Shu caught the storage bag at the same time and Ningyu split a portion of his perception into the storage bag. A while later, Ningyu retracted his perception. It's indeed the herb for refining the recovery elixir, but, at this point, Ningyu paused for a while before he continued, why is there one herb missing from my portion of the recovery elixir's herb? And there's one more herb in He Shu's storage bag? Nonsense, how can there be one less herb? Saber Mountain Venerable's eyes flickered when he was questioned by Ningyu. If you're not satisfied, I'll get you another set of herb. There's no need for that. Upon seeing Saber Mountain Venerable retrieve another storage bag, Ningyu said, I'll use this portion of herb, but I have a condition. You're courting death. Saber Mountain Venerable was secretly delighted, but he asked in a deep voice, tell me, what's your condition? My condition is simple. As long as I can refine the recovery elixir for He Shu first, I'll win regardless of its rank, Ningyu stated. All right, I promise you. Saber Mountain Venerable could not wait any longer. One of the most important herbs was missing from Ningyu's storage bag. Without that herb, Ningyu could not refine the recovery elixir. Chapter 1183. A wide expanse. Ningyu, don't let your emotions affect your decisions. Seeing that Ningyu and Saber Mountain Venerable had come to an agreement, Pilguzi hurriedly said, "Let me see your storage bag." "Pilguzi, are you trying to do something?" Saber Mountain Venerable said coldly. "I've already given the ingredients to Ningyu. If you dare touch them again, even if Ningyu manages to refine the recovery pill before he will still win." How domineering. Pilguzi's expression was ugly. If it weren't for the fact that his cultivation base wasn't as high as Saber Mountain Venerable's, he would have long since fought him. How could he allow Saber Mountain Venerable to do as he pleased? Swish. With a thought, Danguzi turned his gaze to Venerable Spirit Void, hoping that he could uphold justice for Ningyu. "Let's begin." Unexpectedly, Spirit Shu acted as if he hadn't seen Pilguzi. "Ningyu, I look favorably upon you. I hope you won't disappoint me. Haha, a mere recovery pill can't stump me." Ningyu waved the storage bag in his hand with a faint smile. "Shu, I won't take advantage of someone when they're down. Are you ready? If not, I can wait a bit." Thimpy. With a cold snort, Shu took out his cauldron, grabbed a medicinal ingredient, and threw it inside. This kind of pill refinement method? Ningyu was a bit puzzled by Shu's actions. Before heating up the pill furnace, first throwing the medicinal ingredients into the pill furnace, he had only seen this kind of alchemy method in his previous life. Shu's spiritual strength was only at the mid-8th rank. No, he should have used a pill to raise it to the late 8th rank. But a late 8th rank spiritual strength couldn't support Shu's unique pill refinement method. "I'm not doing this." Ningyu quickly reacted. It wasn't that Shu's pill refinement method was special, but that there was a problem with his cauldron. Shu had definitely heated up the cauldron. Sizzle. As expected, just as this thought appeared in Ningyu's mind, Shu's pill furnace let out a kai-kai sound. It was obvious that the kai-kai sound represented that the medicinal ingredients that Shu had thrown into the pill furnace had been completely refined. What an idiot. Shu glanced at Ningyu and said in disdain, "I'm not as stupid as Fei who doesn't know how to prepare. I've long since heated up the pill furnace to the limit. In other words, the speed at which I can refine the rising revival pill has doubled." It turned out that Shu's method was very effective. Originally, he would have needed half an hour to successfully refine the recovery pill. However, with his prior preparations, he only needed 15 minutes at most. "You're quite well prepared." After being called an idiot by Shu, Ningyu was not angry. Instead, he said, "I'm just very confused. Why can even dogs speak human language?" Poochie. When Ningyu's words entered into Shu's ears, it caused his chest to tighten, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Scolding someone without using vulgarities. Ningyu's scolding method had reached the point of perfection. "You only know how to use your tongue." Shu shouted coldly, "Ningyu, let's make another bet." "Bet on what?" Ningyu was confused. "Bet your life." Shu's expression turned fierce. "If I refine the recovery pill before you, you kill yourself. If you refine the recovery pill before me, I kill myself. I can agree to it, but I don't agree with suicide." Ningyu nodded, then shook his head. "What do you want?" Shu asked in a deep voice. "It's simple. If you win, I'll stand where I am and let you slash me. If I win, you stand where you are and let me slash you." Ningyu said this as if it was a game. He did not feel any pressure at all. "All right, I agree." Shu took out another medicinal ingredient from his bag of holding and threw it into the cauldron. He began to focus on refining the recovery pill. Unlike Fei, Shu released his essence energy to form an essence energy shield around him so that he could refine the rising spirit elixir as soon as possible so that he could see everything. He didn't look at Ningyu. He didn't care about what was happening outside. He focused on refining the recovery pill. While Shu was refining the recovery pill, Ningyu was gently tapping the cauldron. No one knew what he was thinking. "Ningyu, why aren't you refining the recovery pill?" Ningyu's actions caused Pilguzi to be a bit puzzled. "I'm thinking about how to refine the recovery pill. After all, I'm missing a medicinal ingredient." If I use normal methods, I definitely won't be able to refine the recovery pill, replied Ningyu. You're smart. You know you can't refine the recovery pill. Saber Mountain Venerable smirked. If you know what's good for you, hand over the Shenyang pills you have. I can get He Shu to stop refining the pill, and the bet between the two of you will be nullified. There's no way I'll admit defeat. I'll never admit defeat in my entire life. Ningyu shrugged. Saber Mountain Venerable, if I use these medicinal ingredients to refine a pill with a higher quality than the recovery pill, would it be considered my victory? No. Saber Mountain Venerable rejected him without any hesitation. Ningyu was full of tricks. He couldn't give him any chances. All right, I'm just asking you. I didn't expect you to agree. Rolling his eyes, Ningyu tossed the cauldron and the storage bag into the cauldron. Ningyu's actions made the mouths of Saber Mountain Venerable and the rest twitch. It was the same routine, and he was using the same method to refine the pill. It was a grade 7 spirit severing pill earlier, and now it's a grade 8 recovery pill. Let's see how you're going to refine it, Saber Mountain Venerable said fiercely. Regression pill. Ignoring Saber Mountain Venerable's ferocious expression, Ningyu searched his mind and found a type of pill from the reincarnation pill theory. It was a pill that corresponded to the recovery pill. The recovery pill could assist in the absorption of vitality, whereas the regression pill was the exact opposite. It could stop a martial artist from absorbing vitality. On the surface, the recovery pill and the regression pill seemed similar. Without careful observation, one would not be able to tell the difference. Most importantly, the regression pill was developed by the owner of the reincarnation pill theory, so the medicinal ingredients used were similar. I'll start refining the regression pill now. After recalling the refinement method of the regression pill in his mind, Ningyu placed his palm on the cauldron, allowing traces of vitality to enter the cauldron through the cauldron. Sizzle, sizzle. Sizzling sounds were heard when his soul power came into contact with the medicinal ingredients. At the same time, a faint flame appeared on the fingertip of Ningyu's left hand, and it kept burning the bottom of the cauldron. As the temperature of the cauldron increased, the sizzling sounds became more obvious. The hissing continued for a full 5 minutes before it stopped. Phew. Once the first segment was successfully completed, Ningyu wiped the sweat off his forehead and exhaled deeply. The first segment was the most important in refining the regression pill. If anything went wrong in the first segment, he would lose the entire game. Chapter 1184. Gasp. Squeeze. After the first stage, Ningyu recalled the refining method of the reversion pill once more and began to put his heart and soul into refining it. Although the first stage was a success, Ningyu didn't dare to be careless. He Shu would only need 15 minutes at most to refine the reversion pill. In other words, Ningyu had to refine a reversion pill similar to the reversion pill within 15 minutes in order to win, otherwise, he would fail. The price of failure was huge. He would have to stand still and let He Shu slash him. He Shu was a peak rank 8 mortal sovereign. One slash from him would be enough to kill Ningyu. Venerable Spirit Shu, you seem to have a lot of confidence in Ningyu. As Ningyu and He Shu focused on refining the pill, Venerable Saber Mountain raised an eyebrow and looked at Venerable Spirit Shu. To tell the truth, this is the first time I've seen a mid-rank 7 alchemist refine an 8th rank pill. I hope you can successfully refine the pill. Venerable Spirit Shu shrugged. Of course he can. There won't be any problems. Haha, to tell you the truth, the ingredients I gave to Ningyu are missing a main ingredient. Venerable Saber Mountain smiled and said in a low voice, if Ningyu can refine the reversion pill, I'll twist my head off and let you use it as a chamber pot. Ha ha ha. With that, Venerable Saber Mountain laughed wildly, his laughter somewhat unbridled. Damn it. Seeing Venerable Saber Mountain's arrogance, Dan Guzi clenched his fists and cursed. Don't be impatient. Venerable Spirit Shu didn't mind and waved his hand, indicating that Dan Guzi didn't need to worry too much. How can I not worry? Without a main ingredient, even I can't refine the reversion pill, let alone Ningyu. Dan Guzi was very anxious. If even a peak rank 8 alchemist like him couldn't refine the reversion pill without a main ingredient, How much ability could Ningyu have? Could he refine the reversion pill? Let's wait a little longer. Revered Spirit Shu said nothing else. Sigh. As for Dan Guzi, he sighed and turned his gaze to Ningyu, hoping to see Ningyu complete his pill first. Bang! Bang! However, the ideal was plentiful, but the reality was harsh. He Shu had obviously refined the recovery pill before. Every step he took was very steady, and his foundation was very solid. Not only did he Shu want to refine the recovery pill before Ningyu, but he also wanted to refine a high-grade or even supreme-grade recovery pill. Refining a top-grade recovery pill in 15 minutes was extremely difficult. Even peak 8th rank alchemists like Dan Guzi and Saber Mountain Venerable didn't dare say they could do it. Where did he Shu get his confidence from? Cough, cough. Right at this moment, the Dark Emperor and the Reverend Talisman Marshal who were at the side felt their mental states improve slightly after consuming the Shenyang pills. Xie Lan, the Dark Emperor, and the Talisman Supremacy had recovered the fastest. Their battle prowess had already recovered to about 60%. As for Yun Mu and Dong He, their auras were still very weak. Dan Guzi, will Ningyu be able to win? The Dark Emperor coughed dryly. The situation doesn't look good. Taking a deep breath, Dan Guzi said, although he Shu is only a mid-8th rank alchemist, his spiritual strength has risen to the late 8th rank after consuming the recovery pill. Based on this situation, he Shu will definitely refine the recovery pill before Ningyu. Also, Dan Guzi paused for a moment and then expressed his worry. The ingredients that Saber Mountain Venerable gave Ningyu are missing one of the main ingredients. No matter how great Ningyu is, he won't be able to refine the recovery pill. This is intolerable. Hearing Dan Guzi's explanation, it wasn't just the Dark Emperor who was infuriated. Even the Reverend Marshal and the others had ugly expressions. At the same time as they were angry, they were also very puzzled. Just what was the relationship between Reverend Spirit Void and Ningyu? Why did he choose to help Ningyu at the start, and then turn a blind eye to it now? Keek. He Shu slapped the pill furnace with his right hand and laughed sinisterly. Ningyu, I'll be able to refine the pill in 3 minutes. You'll probably need a few decades, right? Ha ha ha. I'll borrow your auspicious words. 3 minutes is enough for me. Ningyu shrugged. You should worry about yourself first. If I refine the recovery pill in 1 minute, won't you just stand there and let me cut you with my sword? Me. It won't be so easy to cut me down. With a cold snort, he Shu said, in truth, I can refine the pill right now. The reason I wanted to wait 3 minutes was because I wanted to refine a peak-grade recovery pill. Since you're so stubborn, I'll show you the pill right now. Swish. He Shu shot to his feet, and a berserk fluctuation of Yuan Qi appeared on his right hand as he slapped the bottom of the pill furnace. Bang! A crisp sound rang out from within the pill furnace. Then, everyone saw the lid of the pill furnace fly out. He Shu reached his left hand into the pill furnace and grabbed the pill tightly in his hand. Ningyu, if you kneel down and kowtow to me now, I might wait for a few more minutes. He Shu did not rush to take his left hand out of the pill furnace. Instead, he said calmly, otherwise, you'd better wash your neck and wait for me, noisy. Before he Shu could finish his sentence, his eyes widened and an expression of disbelief appeared on his face. He saw Ningyu slapping the pill furnace repeatedly with both hands. Instantly, the lid flew up and a round pill flew out of the pill furnace. Swish. Ningyu's eyes and hands were sharp, and he grabbed the pill firmly in his hand. Rumble. The sudden change caused He Shu's mind to explode, and he stood on the spot like an idiot. Impossible, this is impossible. At the same time, He Shu kept repeating the word impossible. His face was filled with fear. Whoosh. Ningyu had completed the pill before He Shu. Not only was He Shu dumbfounded, but the Dark Emperor, Dan Guzi, and the others were also dumbfounded. He Shu was a mid-8th grade alchemist, and his soul force had reached the late 8th grade. On the other hand, Ningyu was only a mid-7th grade alchemist, and his soul force was only at the mid-7th grade. Who would have thought that Ningyu would complete the pill before He Shu? He Shu, what are you doing with your left hand in the pill furnace? Why don't you take it out and let everyone see if you've refined a recovery pill? The Dark Emperor chuckled and said in a clear voice. With a cold snort, Hishu withdrew his left hand from the pill cauldron. There was also a round medicinal pill in his hand. A high-grade recovery pill. The elixir that Hishu had refined was the recovery elixir, and its quality had reached the upper grade. Although he hadn't refined a supreme-grade recovery pill, a high-grade recovery pill was already very difficult. TSK. Chapter 1185. Aperture. Fart. Hishu was furious to begin with. Now that the Dark Emperor said that, he felt something sweet in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. Her flushed face instantly turned incomparably pale. Stupid, I'm so stupid. Hishu was very regretful, extremely regretful. The Dark Emperor was right. He was supposed to be the winner, and everything was because he wanted to show off his power in front of Ningyu. Sure enough, an old saying was true. Don't act cool, or you'll be struck by lightning. Don't act pure, or you'll be ganged up on. Saber Mountain Venerable, isn't it time to fulfill your promise now? We'll talk about Hishu later. Hand over the soul jade pendant now, Venerable Spiritual Shu said with a smile. What's the hurry? Saber Mountain Venerable was annoyed when he first saw Ningyu refining the recovery pill. While he was annoyed, he wanted to kill Hishu. However, he quickly returned to normal after some thought. Saber Mountain Venerable waved his hand and said loudly, on the surface, Ningyu defeated Hishu, but that's not the case. Oh! Venerable Spiritual Shu raised his brow in confusion. It's simple, Ningyu didn't refine the recovery pill. Blade Mountain Venerable One would not stop until he said something shocking. Swoosh! Saber Mountain Venerable's words caused the hearts of all the martial artists, including Ningyu, to skip a beat. In particular, Ningyu was extremely nervous. The pill that he refined was indeed not the recovery pill, but the regression pill, which had the same aura as the recovery pill. I don't think he could tell that he's just trying to deny me. Even though Saber Mountain Venerable was well prepared, Ningyu still caught the evil smirk on the Venerable One's face. Since he did not notice anything, Ningyu was no longer worried. After sorting out his thoughts, Ningyu asked, Saber Mountain Venerable, what proof do you have that I didn't refine the recovery pill? If you have evidence, everyone will believe you. If you don't, you're just talking nonsense. Ha ha ha. The evidence is simple. Blade Mountain Venerable laughed out loud and said to Hishu, hand over the recovery pill that you refined. Hishu obediently took the recovery pill and handed it to Blade Mountain Venerable. Blade Mountain Venerable One waved the recovery pill in his hand and said, Hishu refined a high-grade recovery pill, and there are 3 halos on it. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Sure enough, as Saber Mountain Venerable had said, 3 halos appeared on the recovery pill. Pill Guzi, did I say something wrong? Saber Mountain Venerable turned to look at Dan Guzi. Correct. Dan Guzi nodded. High-grade recovery pills truly do have 3 rings. Ningyu, from your performance and the process of forming the pill, I can determine that you also refined a high-grade recovery pill. Blade Mountain Venerable changed the topic and said, let everyone see the pill in your hand. If there are also 3 halos on it, I will admit that you defeated Hishu. If there are number 3 halos, then Hishu defeated you. Saber Mountain Venerable, what are you trying to say? Before Ningyu could say anything, Dan Guzi said coldly, Ningyu said that as long as he refined the recovery pill before Hishu, he would win. Why did you change the rules? Dan Guzi believed that Ningyu had refined the recovery pill. However, he did not believe that Ningyu had refined a high-grade recovery pill. Saber Mountain Venerable's words infuriated Dan Guzi, and he flew into a rage. Don't be in such a hurry. Since Saber Mountain Venerable is so interested, what's wrong with letting him take a look? Ningyu patted Dan Guzi's shoulder and said, as for whether I refined a high-grade recovery pill or not, you'll know at a glance. It's hard to judge just by guessing. Alright, you're straightforward indeed. Hand it over. Saber Mountain Venerable said proudly. Swish. Ningyu did not waste any time. He directly threw the pill in his hand to Saber Mountain Venerable. "If this pill lands in my hand, I will make sure it doesn't emit a single halo," Saber Mountain Venerable said inwardly. I suddenly realized that Ningyu's words make sense. As long as he refined a recovery pill, he will win no matter what rank it is. Did the sun rise from the west? Seeing how Saber Mountain Venerable's expression changed so quickly, the Dark Emperor and the others were confused. Just a second ago, he said that Ningyu had to refine a high-grade recovery pill, but a second later, he slapped himself in the face and said anything was fine. The inconsistency in his words was very reproachful. "Seal it." Saber Mountain Venerable opened his palm and sent a portion of his soul power into the pill. He wanted to destroy the halo energy emitted by the pill. Once that energy was destroyed, even a supreme grade or transcendent grade recovery pill would not be able to emit a halo. Crack! A crisp sound came from within the pill. "Saber Mountain Venerable, what are you doing?" Dan Gu's expression turned ugly when he heard that voice. "I'm not doing anything. Open your eyes and take a good look. See if Ningyu's pill can emit a halo." Saber Mountain Venerable raised his nose in the air and looked indifferent. To Saber Mountain Venerable, Ningyu was bound to lose. Not even the Alchemy Sovereign could save him. Saber, Saber, Saber. Saber Mountain Venerable did not look at the pill in his hand, but Shu, who was beside him, saw it clearly. For the first 3 seconds, there were no halos on the pill. From the 4th second onward, halos began to appear on the pill. Furthermore, with every passing second, a layer of light would appear on the pill. 6 seconds. From start to finish, a total of 6 seconds had passed. In these 6 seconds, the recovery pill in Saber Mountain Venerable's palm had undergone an earth-shattering change. From having no halo, to now having 3 layers of halo. Furthermore, the circle of light on the pill was still slowly increasing. Terrifying. Extremely terrifying. 3 halos represented a high-grade recovery pill. If 4 halos appeared on the pill, wouldn't it mean that Ningyu had refined a supreme-grade recovery pill? Sizzle. The crowd was getting more and more shocked. With a sizzling sound, the number of halos on the elixir increased to 4. Gulp. At this moment, Saber Mountain Venerable had already shifted his gaze to his palm. Saber Mountain Venerable swallowed his saliva. His eyes widened and his face was filled with disbelief. 4 halos. It's actually 4 halos. Behind Saber Mountain Venerable, Shu looked like he was possessed. His eyes were dull and frightening. Awake. What? Shu's state infuriated Saber Mountain Venerable. He raised his foot and wanted to kick Shu. However, just as Saber Mountain Venerable lifted his right foot, he put it down again. That was because Saber Mountain Venerable noticed that the halo on the round pill in his palm was slowly increasing. Chapter 1186. One's words carry weight. Crack. Perhaps he did not want to disappoint the crowd, or perhaps he wanted to verify that Ningyu had refined a supreme recovery elixir. When the cracking sound was heard, a 5th layer of light appeared on the elixir in Saber Mountain Venerable's hand. Whoosh. 5 layers of light. At that moment, the recovery elixir in Saber Mountain Venerable's hand, which was the one refined by Ningyu, had 5 layers of light. Silence. Silence. Unusually silence. All the martial artists in the room shifted their attention to Saber Mountain Venerable and the elixir in his hand. Everyone knew very well what 5 layers of light represented. Saber Mountain Venerable had said earlier that 3 layers of light represented a high-grade recovery elixir, while 4 layers represented a supreme-grade recovery elixir. 5 layers of light represented a supreme-grade recovery elixir. In other words, the recovery elixir refined by Ningyu was a supreme-grade recovery elixir. According to the bet between Ningyu and Shu, whoever refined the recovery elixir first would be the winner. After refining a supreme-grade recovery elixir, it was an undeniable fact that Ningyu won. How could Ningyu refine a supreme-grade recovery elixir? Shu's eyes were fixed on the elixir in Saber Mountain Venerable's hand with a confused look on his face. Shu would never have expected Ningyu to be able to refine a supreme-grade recovery elixir. In fact, He Shu had expected Ningyu to be able to refine a supreme-grade recovery elixir, but he would never have expected Ningyu to be able to refine a supreme-grade recovery elixir. A supreme-grade recovery elixir. Saber Mountain Venerable's face was extremely ugly. If not for the fact that he was wearing clothes, the veins on his arms and thighs would have been completely exposed to everyone. Why can it still emit 5 layers of light even after I destroyed the energy inside? Saber Mountain Venerable sent another portion of his soul power into the recovery elixir to investigate. Damn it! After a while, Saber Mountain Venerable retracted his soul power, and a furious look appeared on his face. Because no matter how he probed, he couldn't find the source of the problem. Ningyu can actually refine a supreme-grade recovery pill in such a short time. If he was given another hour, wouldn't he be able to refine a peak grade 8 pill? Dan Guzi swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Rumble. Dan Guzi's words caused the originally quiet room to explode. Although the recovery pill was an 8th grade medicinal pill, it was not the best among 8th grade medicinal pills. Being able to concoct the recovery pill did not mean that one could concoct a peak grade 8 pill. After all, even peak rank 8 alchemists like Dan Guzi and Saber Mountain Venerable wouldn't dare to guarantee success in 1 out of 10 furnaces of peak rank 8 pills. Ka. Saber Mountain Venerable's expression grew even more unsightly. He clenched his fists so hard that cracking sounds could be heard. Originally, when Ningyu foolishly agreed to let him inspect the pills, he felt that the opportunity had come and was very excited. Who would have thought that all of this was within Ningyu's calculations? He was fooled by Ningyu like a monkey. Crack. Because he had used too much strength, the pill in Saber Mountain Venerable's palm was crushed to pieces. Dan Guzi, did Ningyu really refine a supreme-grade recovery pill? It wasn't just Dan Guzi and Saber Mountain Venerable who were shocked. Even Venerable Talisman Marshal was shocked. After being together with Ningyu for so long, Venerable Talisman Marshal had no idea that Ningyu's skill in alchemy was so high. That was a supreme-grade recovery pill. How could Ningyu possibly refine it? Back in the 100-Flower Palace, Venerable Talisman Marshal had seen an 8th grade alchemist refine a supreme-grade recovery pill. That alchemist had been a peak 8th grade alchemist. That peak 8th grade alchemist had spent a full day and night to refine a furnace of supreme-grade recovery pills. Furthermore, that peak 8th grade alchemist's aura had weakened after refining it, and he had to rest for 3 days and 3 nights to recover. Ningyu's ability to refine a supreme-grade recovery pill had truly surpassed his expectations. I'm not too sure about the specifics, but from Saber Mountain Venerable's expression, we should be able to determine that Ningyu refined a supreme-grade recovery pill. Dan Guzi nodded, then shook his head. Logically speaking, Ningyu shouldn't have been able to refine a supreme-grade recovery pill. Just what is going on? Dan Guzi found it hard to believe that someone had refined a supreme-grade recovery pill in such a short time. It would be strange if you could guess anything. Seeing everyone's reaction, Ningyu shrugged. The supreme-grade recovery pill had been developed by the owner of the reincarnation pill Dao. Other than Ningyu, no one else had seen it before. In other words, even if Dan Guzi and Saber Mountain Venerable racked their brains, they wouldn't be able to figure out what the problem was. Many thanks. After sorting out his thoughts, Ningyu said to Saber Mountain Venerable, "Luckily, you stood up for me at the crucial moment. Otherwise, if He Shu insisted that I didn't refine a supreme-grade recovery pill, I really wouldn't be able to prove it." You. Saber Mountain Venerable's face darkened, filled with viciousness. "I'm not the one who owes you millions of royal-grade essence crystals and Shenyang pills." Pursing his lips, Ningyu ignored Saber Mountain Venerable and walked towards the soul jade pendant. Actually, Ningyu was right. The main reason he could fool everyone was because of Saber Mountain Venerable. Fortunately, Saber Mountain Venerable had crushed the supreme-grade recovery pill. Otherwise, he might really have been discovered after a long time. Now that the pill had been crushed, even an immortal wouldn't be able to tell what was wrong. "What are you going to do?" Saber Mountain Venerable asked in a deep voice when he saw what Ningyu was doing. Ningyu stopped and said, "You should know what I'm trying to do. I lost the bet, and I'm just taking back the soul jade pendant that belongs to me." I must kill Ningyu. Saber Mountain Venerable was secretly determined to kill Ningyu no matter what. If he did not kill Ningyu, he would not be able to pacify his anger. Ningyu, I did say that the Soul Jade Pendant will belong to you after you defeat He Fei and He Shu, but... Saber Mountain Venerable changed the topic at this point. It won't be that easy for you to take the Soul Jade Pendant away. Hehe, what do you mean by it won't be that easy? Are you going to go back on your word? Ningyu said with a smile. I'm not going back on my words. I, Saber Mountain Venerable, have never gone back on my words. Saber Mountain Venerable scoffed and uttered a shameless statement. You must defeat me in alchemy, or the Soul Jade Pendant will belong to me. Fart. Upon hearing Saber Mountain Venerable's shameless words, Ningyu could not help but spit out blood. He had seen shameless people, but he had never seen someone as shameless as Saber Mountain Venerable. You're a peak grade 8 pill refinement master, yet you're proposing to compete with a middle grade 7 pill refinement master. What else can you be if not shameless? Saber Mountain Venerable, are you sure you want to compete with me in alchemy? Ningyu said hesitantly, it's not impossible, but you must make He Shu fulfill his promise first. Stand where you are and let me slash you. Chapter 1187. Ningyu, don't push your luck. Saber Mountain Venerable's face turned ugly. I've already given you a chance. Since you don't know how to cherish it, don't even think about getting this Soul Jade Pendant. I'm pushing my luck. Ningyu pointed at his nose and said exaggeratedly. I remember that He Shu said that as long as I refine the recovery elixir before him, he would stand on the spot and let me slash him regardless of my rank. Are you going to go back on your words? Swish. Ningyu's words made Saber Mountain Venerable clench his teeth in anger. Although Ningyu was only a grade 3 sovereign and He Shu was a pinnacle grade 8 sovereign, He Shu might not be able to block Ningyu's full-powered attack. He Fei was already heavily injured. If He Shu was killed by Ningyu, it would be hard for him to explain himself even if he brought Danguzi back to the Alchemy Union. You're too much. He Shu's face was extremely dark. He unleashed his pinnacle grade 8 aura and pressed down on Ningyu. He Shu wanted to let Ningyu know that there was always someone better out there. Nonsense. Sensing He Shu's aura, Saber Mountain Venerable kicked He Shu's butt and reprimanded, I told you to focus on learning alchemy, but you didn't listen. Now that you've failed, you should be punished. Ningyu and the others were puzzled by Saber Mountain Venerable One's words. It didn't make sense. No matter how strong He Shu was, he couldn't block Ningyu's attack. Could it be that He Shu had a powerful trump card? Ningyu, I, He Shu, am a man of my words. I'll stand on the spot and let you slash at me. He Shu took a step forward and closed his eyes. He stretched out his neck and said, use your flying sword to slash at my neck. Don't hold back, or I'll look down on you. Fart. The Dark Emperor couldn't help but laugh when he saw He Shu's suicidal look. The neck, head, and heart were the weakest parts of the human body. If He Shu allowed Ningyu to chop off his arm, it would definitely not be a fatal injury. Now that He Shu had asked Ningyu to chop off his neck, it was just like the saying, if you don't court death, you won't die. Why should I let you see it? Shrugging, Ningyu moved his feet and slowly walked toward the He Tree. Ningyu's speed was neither too fast nor too slow. As he advanced, Ningyu flicked his wrist, and the red demon sword appeared in his hand. Kai Kai. The pulsating vital energy on the red demon sword emitted a sizzling sound as it came into contact with the air. If you want to chop, then chop. Stop dawdling. Ningyu's slow speed made He Shu a little impatient. Don't ever hold back. I see. After approaching He Shu, Ningyu's mind stirred, and he finally discovered the source of the problem. On He Shu's neck, there was a layer of faint white halo. The halo was very weak, and if one did not look carefully, they would not notice it at all. Others might not know what the white halo was, but Ningyu knew it very well. The rebound halo. The white halo was called the rebound halo. As the name suggested, as long as the attack was below the level of a 9th grade human supreme, it would be reflected. The greater the strength, the greater the rebound. What a wishful thinking. If I had used all my strength to chop off Hishu, I would definitely be the one at a disadvantage. Frowning slightly, Ningyu ignored Hishu's mockery and fell into deep thought. The current situation was indeed a little difficult to advance or retreat. In Ningyu's mind, Hishu had to die today, and with the rebound halo, Hishu was almost invincible. Of course, there was still a possibility, and that was that Ningyu's attack had reached the level of a 9th grade human supreme. That was the only way for the reflective halo to be broken and Hishu to directly die. My current all-out attack is at most equivalent to a peak 8th grade human supreme, and that's under the premise of using all my strength. Ningyu was very clear about his own strength. If he used all his strength, he could only unleash an attack at the level of a peak 8th grade human supreme. This attack was obviously not enough. He had to think of another way. Ningyu, I say you're dawdling. You're really dawdling. Are you going to cut it or not? Seeing Ningyu's dazed expression, Hishu mocked again. Chop, why not? Suddenly, Ningyu's mind shook, and he immediately thought of a countermeasure. Since you reflected the attack to me, why don't I reflect the attack back? After a second reflection, Hishu would die for sure. Thinking of this, Ningyu said, Hishu, I'm a little worried now. Worried about what? Hishu was puzzled. What if you retaliate when I attack you? Ningyu said solemnly. Ha ha ha. Hishu raised his head and laughed, then coldly said, My name, Hishu, is trustworthy. Why would I retaliate? That's hard to say. I'm very suspicious of your character. When he spoke up to hear, Ningyu paused for a moment before he continued, How about this? Take out a few 100,000 royal grade origin crystals and put them aside. So long as you fight back, those royal grade origin crystals will belong to me. You. Hishu gritted his teeth in anger. Hishu extended his right hand and pointed at Ningyu. I, Hishu, swear that if I retaliate, I will suffer the 5-blow thunderbolt tribulation. All right, I'll reluctantly believe you. Ningyu shrugged. Cut the crap. I know you're stalling for time, but there's no point in doing so. At the end of the day, you still have to face Hishu. Blade Mountain Venerable was also a little impatient. He also thought that Ningyu was stalling for time. If he was really capable, he would have made a move long ago. Why would he wait until now? As for the fact that Ningyu saw through the reflective halos, Blade Mountain Venerable did not even think about it. From Saber Mountain Venerable's point of view, he was the only martial artist present who could spot the reflected light circles. This included Spiritual Void, who was also a middle grade 9 alchemist. Alright, but before I make a move, I have 2 requests. Ningyu revealed a helpless expression and said, Firstly, Hishu has to have his back facing me. No matter what happens, he can't turn around until I step back. Second, Blade Mountain Venerable, stay away from me. I'm more afraid of a middle grade 9 sovereign. Third, Blade Mountain Venerable, you have to swear on the heavenly law that once I kill Hishu, you mustn't send anyone to cause trouble for me. Fourth, Blade Mountain Venerable, stop. Blade Mountain Venerable's face darkened when he heard Ningyu's request. He said in a deep voice, You talk too much. Didn't you say you only have 2 requests? Why are you talking about the 4th one? Is it the 4th one? I'm really sorry, but I'm quite forgetful. Ningyu spread his palms to express his innocence. Danguzi, why would Ningyu say such useless things? Blade Mountain Venerable knew that Ningyu's requests were meaningless. Even if Blade Mountain Venerable agreed to Ningyu on the surface, he would definitely not fulfill his promise behind his back. Blade Mountain Venerable knew middle grade 9 sovereigns very well. Chapter 1188. Completely intact. Psychological attack. Danguzi seemed to have seen through something and solemnly said, After all, Hishu is a peak rank 8 sovereign. He's extremely powerful, and without using any magical treasures, Ningyu wouldn't be able to get close to him, let alone slash his neck. The reason why Ningyu is teasing Saber Mountain Venerable and stalling for time is to distract Hishu, making him flustered and exasperated. That way, he'll relax his guard and reveal an opportunity. At this time, Yunmu hesitated and said, Senior Danguzi, do you think Ningyu can injure Saber Mountain Venerable? It's hard to say. Although Ningyu is powerful, Hishu isn't someone to be trifled with. After pondering for a moment, Danguzi said, in my opinion, unless Ningyu has a trump card, Hishu will definitely be completely unharmed. In fact, Ningyu might even be affected. Interesting, indeed interesting. As Danguzi and the others conversed in low voices, Venerable Spirit Shu's lips curled up slightly. He muttered, Hishu definitely has a trump card, and Ningyu definitely has a trump card as well. It's just that I don't know what it is. Seeing Venerable Spirit Shu's doubtful expression, Saber Mountain Venerable snorted and said, if even you can't see through the reflection halo, then Ningyu must be blind. Swish. Suddenly, Ningyu stomped on the ground and charged forward. Ningyu's speed was extremely fast. Ningyu and Hishu weren't that far from each other. Adding on Ningyu's speed, it only took him 0.1 seconds to arrive in front of Hishu. Hiss. The red demon sword in his hand constantly flickered, emitting a hissing sound. Even the air around it started to crack. Fart. Saber Mountain Venerable could not help but laugh when he sensed the vitality fluctuation contained in the red demon sword. Ningyu, although this attack of yours is powerful, it's only equivalent to the full-powered attack of a 5th grade sovereign. Who gave you the courage to make such a move? Really? Ningyu naturally heard Blade Mountain Venerable's mocking words. Ningyu stopped abruptly and turned to ask Saber Mountain the Venerable, Saber Mountain the Venerable, if I kill Hishu, will you have to pay a price? Humph. If you can kill Hishu, I. Blade Mountain Venerable scoffed and said, I'll call you Grandpa. Haha, I hope you won't go back on your words. Ningyu smiled and said. As soon as the word Yang was uttered, the Yuan Qi undulations on the red demon sword suddenly surged. 5th grade peak human sovereign, 6th grade peak human sovereign, 6th grade peak human sovereign. In a short period of time, the Yuan Qi undulations on the red demon sword had increased from a 5th grade peak human sovereign to a 7th grade peak human sovereign. Furthermore, it was still rising. Crack. In that instant, it was as if something had been squeezed open. The Yuan Qi undulations on the red demon sword had reached a terrifying 8th grade peak human sovereign. Rise again. With a low roar, Ningyu poured all the Yuan Qi in his body into the red demon sword, instantly raising the red demon sword's aura to its peak. Boom. A muffled sound rang out. 8th grade peak human sovereign. The red demon sword's aura undulations had reached a terrifying 8th grade peak human sovereign. Blade Mountain Venerable, don't blink. Leaving those words, Ningyu held onto the red demon sword and slashed at Hishu's neck in the blink of an eye. Crack. A crisp sound rang out in the room. Whoosh. Everyone only saw a figure rapidly flying backwards. It's Ningyu. Why was Ningyu rebounded? Is Hishu that powerful? The sudden change had caused Venerable Talisman Marshal and the Dark Emperor to widen their mouths with disbelief on their faces. At the very least, he shouldn't have been rebounded. Could it be that Danguzi's words were true? Ningyu couldn't come into contact with Hishu, and he might even be affected by it. Judging from the current situation, Ningyu was the one that was affected. Ha ha ha. Seeing Ningyu being rebounded, Venerable Saber Mountain was briefly stunned before he roared with laughter. I told you that you couldn't do it, but you insisted on being stubborn. Now, you're the one that's embarrassed. I'll take back the Soul Jade Pendant. Venerable Saber Mountain had an arrogant look on his face. Venerable Saber Mountain even came to Venerable Spiritual Shu's side and said with his nose in the air, Venerable Spiritual Shu, Ningyu was the one that insisted on this bet. Now that he's lost, you can't help him. Me. Venerable Spiritual Shu coldly snorted as he turned his head away. Out of sight, out of mind. In truth, even Venerable Spiritual Shu was a little surprised that Ningyu had been rebounded. After all, he had a high opinion of Ningyu. In his opinion, even if Ningyu couldn't kill Hishu, he shouldn't have been rebounded. But now, not only had Ningyu been rebounded, but even his aura was a little weak. Damn it. The Dark Emperor cursed inwardly when he saw Ningyu flying back. His aura suddenly spread out. Don't be in such a rush. Seeing that the Dark Emperor was about to make a move, Dan Guzi slapped him and said, "Let's wait and see." "What are you waiting for? If you keep looking, Ningyu will," the Dark Emperor said anxiously. However, before the Dark Emperor could finish speaking, Ningyu steadied himself. First, he cracked his neck, then Ningyu said to Venerable Saber Mountain, "Stop stalling for time. Hurry up and fulfill your promise. Call me grandfather." "Ningyu, have you lost your mind?" Venerable Saber Mountain pointed at his nose and said exaggeratedly, "Are you kidding me? You're the one not calling me grandfather, but you're saying I'm stalling for time? What nonsense. You're the one who's mistaken. You should be the one calling me grandfather," said Ningyu indifferently. Whoosh. When Ningyu said that, the Dark Emperor and the others looked at Ningyu with strange expressions. Could it be that Ningyu had really lost his mind? A bad feeling rose in the hearts of the Dark Emperor and the others. You clearly didn't injure his shoe. You didn't even leave a mark on his neck, but now you're making Venerable Saber Mountain call you grandfather. What's wrong with Ningyu? He's acting a little strange today. The Dark Emperor frowned slightly. He is. Is it because he's afraid of Venerable Saber Mountain? That doesn't make sense. With Venerable Spiritual Shu supporting him, there's no reason for him to be afraid of Venerable Saber Mountain. Dan Guzi shook his head, then nodded. In my opinion, Ningyu doesn't want to call Venerable Saber Mountain his grandfather. Who cares? Venerable Saber Mountain isn't a good person anyway. As long as Ningyu doesn't want to call him grandfather, what can he do? The Dark Emperor said coldly, "Venerable Spiritual Shu is on our side. He won't just stand by and watch. Ningyu, you're courting death." Blade Mountain Venerable uttered coldly with a frightening luster in his eyes. "How am I courting death? You can look at his Shu and see if there's any change in him." Ningyu spread his hands and pointed at his Shu. Swish. Venerable Saber Mountain's gaze followed Ningyu's palm and looked at his Shu. Saber Mountain Venerable was rather dumbfounded when he took a look. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.